allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next we'll have roll call, please.
Budget Committee Member Hazel? Here. Budget Committee Member Syke? Here. Budget Committee Member Solani?
Here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Budget Committee Member Holmstrom?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Rasa?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Masters?
Yes.
Budget Committee Member Walker?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Kelly? Sorry?
Absent.
Budget Committee Member Lorraine?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Cramlett?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Storm?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Solinger? Here. Budget Committee Member Helfrich?
Here.
Budget Committee Member Lewis?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, item 2 is additions or amendments to the agenda. I don't believe we have any I'm aware of. Item number 3 is follow-up information on the tourism fund, and I think that's going to be presented by Kayla.
Hello again.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Which one should you do?
So do you guys want to just read this, or do you guys want to look it over and then ask any questions?
Why don't we just look this over, and then if anybody has questions, we'll go from there. Everybody done? You need a little more time? Any questions for Kayla?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask for, I'm not really aware of the Skamania Performing Arts Series. Could we get some more information on that?
Yes, Community Performing Arts, it's run out of Stevenson, and they basically come to your town and they have like a prepackaged concert. And we really couldn't get a bigger act because we didn't have the money that, you know, like Mary Hill or something like that would put out. So we probably got maybe 200 people, I think. But it was really great. We just, you know, it fell in there to sell them. So, but basically it's just a concert. And I say series because they do series in different towns. They didn't do a series, we just did one per year. We did one the year before and then one last year.
So we'll have one event here?
I don't know if we're gonna do it this year, we haven't decided.
Okay.
I doubt it, but.
So You did that last year or earlier?
We did it last year
Okay.
and the year before that. We were trying to do a shoulder season, so we had it in October.
Okay.
Please, go ahead, Mark.
The Festival of Nations, that's canceled, isn't it? I mean,
Right,
that's.
I was just showing you kind of in the past what.
Okay.
Brad,
Curious
please.
as to whether brochure distribution couldn't be put under something other than travel. Seems like it would be under part of advertising or something to that effect. I don't know. It kind of surprises me that it was under travel.
Anybody else? Mary Ann?
If you decide that you want to take it out of travel, that's where it's been paid out for the last couple of years. Because it does include travel, we're basically paying her to travel to these various locations to distribute brochures. The other place you could put it, because it's a contract in a way, is contract service miscellaneous. But history has been in the travel and training. So it's really up to the budget committee whether they want to take that out or leave it, knowing that that's where the history is. That's up to you.
Anybody else? Please.
I think just for the the ease of keeping books, if you can itemize, if you have a budget, a travel budget, and you line item your budget for that, and then your travel expenses, I think it's an easier way to read that out and do that, just so you can look at it later, instead of it just coming out of there and having to ask what it was spent, just allocate those funds, so they know where they're at. And they, just like you said, have a different line item for it.
Oh, you mean have a separate line up for brochure
Yeah.
distribution?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
You can sure do that if you want.
Nobody else? Kayla, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is public comment. Please, would you step forward and give us your name? Thank you.
My name is Virginia Fitzpatrick. I've been a resident here since 1994, and I'd like to read this statement. I haven't been real involved in this, so I'm not real good on the protocol and the rules and all that stuff, but I'd appreciate if you'd all listen to me, please. And I start off with, I'm not real familiar with all the proceedings and protocols. That being said, I'd like to go on the record and have my comments and the following documents entered as part of the record. I was gone almost the full summer of 2011, last summer, so I was not involved or much aware of all the stuff that was happening with our city government and the EMS. I'm not one to drag up the past too much, but I hope that we can learn from our previous mistakes. Firstly, I would like to state that I think EMS is extremely important, and I'd love to have a full-time chief, assistant, office staff, and a paramedic or two. I really would. That being said, I also think that solid funding needs to be in place. I know the city is swimming in so much debt that we need to stop, look, and listen. If we have to manage with a part-time chief for a year or two to keep within the budget and available monies, that's more than we had the first 10 years that I lived here. We have paramedics and EMTs that live here. We had an on-call paramedic program, which was really pretty cheap to operate. Skamania is 11 minutes away. It's an eternity if you're having a heart attack. But one full-time paramedic is not going to solve that. If he or she is with another patient or out on a call, it's almost like not having it. I verified the last 10 years of ambulance collections with Mary Ann, and I have some documents to pass out. And I'm so happy to see whoever put this together finally realized that on only one occasion in the last 10 years did the ambulance collections come in over $100,000. In 09-10, the total collections were $35,431.16. It's a far cry from $100,000. The average in the last 10 years was approximately $54,000. The paperwork I got from Springfield stated in 09 and 10, the accounts receivable balance was $485,251.95. That's almost $500,000. Bad debt collections run anywhere from $900 to $2,700 a year. That's not a whole lot to count. With the economy in the shape it is, I truly believe we can easily assume that there will be a lot more unpaid ambulance charges. I have researched the ambulance billing, and according to Brian Evanoff of Springfield, and I have his number here, I'll give you all a copy of that, a care report is required by the state of Oregon to be filled out within 24 hours by whoever attends patient. And then that is to be submitted to the hospital to be attached to a face sheet. And a face sheet is address, insurance info, date of birth, all that kind of stuff. And that is what is submitted to Springfield. I know I's need dotted and T's crossed, but it seems like there are a lot of hands dipping into the financial aspects of the billing, and there could be a savings there. Brian was kind enough to tell me that Medicare pays out in about 21 days, Medicaid pays out in a short time, Blue Cross Blue Shield pays out in about 45 to 60 days, and the Oregon Health Plan pays out in 60 days. That's if they're submitted. I really feel like people have just not done their homework to really understand this whole billing situation. In my estimation, it's not really much of a revenue generating operation. It's extremely important, but there's not a lot of revenue that comes from this. In item 1, which I'll give you, page 3 of the final report and recommendations of the Public Safety Task Force, you'll see highlighted, the actual recommendation is very clear and self-explanatory. Number 3 of the recommendations said, and the community be asked to vote on that. And that was the 2 items that we talked about Monday. And then there's also a 2-page letter from our attorney in the third paragraph stating that the ordinance could be adopted if it was an emergency. And then when I asked him, he said it wasn't an emergency. But you'll have the letter, so you'll know. That kind of led me to believe that the increase in fees were being kind of pushed up there because it's budget time. I could be wrong, but it's a little suspicious. When the minutes come, I'll be glad to get you a copy of that that says that he said it was an emergency. Item number 3 is a copy of page 6 of our city charter, which is also very self-explanatory. It clearly states that to increase any tax, charge, or fee, the ordinance shall not be effective unless ratified by a majority vote of the city's qualified electors voting in an election where at least 50% of the registered voters cast a ballot, or the election is a general election at an even number year. Pushing this budget through with monies obtained without regard for the laws and the people have voted on is not a way to bring this town back together. I think most of us would agree this has been a real thorn for everyone. Neighbors against neighbors, it's an us against them mentality, pretty much an unfriendly atmosphere around this town. This will cause more damage and division. I really do not want that, and I really don't think anyone else does either. Maybe we all need to kind of go back to kindergarten, learn to listen and share and get along and all that stuff. And I'll pass you all out a copy of it so you'll have it. Should I get it?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Dave?
No, it's not. It might be.
Never know.
Or just one open.
And do we have anybody else who wishes to speak? No? Next, we have item number 5 on the agenda, review and discuss the following budget elements, department overview of services and objectives for each budget element, an opportunity for budget committee members to ask questions of staff prior to action. And I'll turn that over to Paul.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Chief Wells is on his way, so I expect him to walk in at any time, but let me share with you what you have in front of you in terms of the revised budget for the Emergency Services Department. So we're dealing off of the handout that you have and not what's in the budget book. This replaces that. Based on the actions of City Council, on Monday night, you'll see reflected in revenues increases in the fire suppression fee of $53,908, the ambulance service fees of $80,000 based on that set of actions taken by council, and then a transfer from other funds of $43,380 that represents a 2% increase in internal payments, for a total revenue for this department of $277,208. On the expense side, we took out the proposed part-time chief that was about a $40,000 item, and at council direction placed $118,788 in the fire chief line item for the hiring of a full-time chief, chief paramedic, or however that works out. And then under materials and services, the second page, you'll see and highlighted some of the decreases, and what is increased in this budget is the payment to the Volunteer Association to get you down to $88,854. The third page, capital outlay items that include the medical equipment as well as vehicle tires, for a total of $4,430. Interfund transfers, $2,460 for the fire truck, and then there's $45,000 to repay a loan from the general fund capital reserve to fund the cash deficit that's anticipated for this year's departmental budget. And then the last page is the administrative overhead that gets you to $277,208 in revenue, and then $2,077,208 as the expenditures.
Thank you. And I'd entertain a tentative motion on the budget, Fund 5. Darlene?
I had a question for Paul under materials and services, Springfield Bill.
Darlene, I'd like to get a motion on the floor, and then after we get a motion, we'll go into questions and comments.
I'll move we tentatively approve the Emergency Services Department 5 budget as presented tonight.
Thank you, Randy.
Second.
And we have a second. Okay. We'll go with Darlene, and then we'll go with Sandra.
Under materials and services, the Springfield billing is reduced to $2,000. Do we not plan on doing any more billing? Or was that the lack of billing?
That 2,000 seems to be the most realistic, given how much was budgeted during the current year and our current expenditures. So the answer is, we will continue to do billing. This seems to be a closer number to actual cost.
Sandra, please.
I notice here that one of the suggestions is to place on the fall 2012 ballot a request to read ambulance fees for residents and non-residents, and that the current fire suppression fee on the utility bill also be raised, and the community asked to vote on that also. Is it my understanding, based from that you're going to bring those two issues to a vote of the citizens?
This is going to
Okay.
Virginia, not council. This is going to Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I have an announcement to make. I'm not going to be participating in the budgeting for money that I feel has been illegally appropriated. And if I were this budget committee, I would seriously consider not to depend on this money, because I don't believe it will be there. If you plan on putting it on the ballot at the rate you suggested, it'll never pass. And if you plan on just doing it anyway, it will be turned back in court. And this is already, the initiatives have already been tested in court, and the writer of the ballot, the original writer of the ballot, is willing to defend it, and so am I. So while you're dealing with inappropriately gotten money, I can have nothing to do with this, and so I'm going to be leaving tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? Darlene and then Bobby?
Yes, I'd like to ask members here that are the city council, you were sworn into oath for council.
Darlene, This is the budget committee here.
Right, and
These
this
people do
pertains to
serve
budget.
on, these
This
people are here
pertains to
as
budget.
members of the budget committee.
Yep.
If you have things to address to the budget committee, that's appropriate for tonight.
Part of the
But
budget
addressing,
committee. This is
addressing the
budget.
city council at this meeting is not appropriate.
I thought you called on me to raise my hand. I have the floor to speak.
I
This
did,
pertains
but
to the budget.
we're not in a city council meeting, so please keep your comments to the budget committee. Thank you.
You swore an oath to uphold and support our city charter. Our city charter tells us how we can raise and increase fees that we have to budget. Were you aware of that? Did you read your charter?
Again, Darlene, these people are here
Governing
for the
rules.
budget committee. I'm here as a budget committee member, even though I belong to the planning commission. I do not expect questions about planning at this meeting, and I don't think it's appropriate to be asking them questions
Let me ask you,
about
have they read their
city
charter?
council.
Did they read their charter? The charter has provisions on how
You're-
to collect our revenue.
As I said,
We're
it's
budgeting
inappropriate to be
revenue.
asking them questions about
That's
city
fine.
council.
They can't answer? Did you read your charter? You
I
support
don't
the
think it's
charter?
necessary.
You
Randy?
can't answer
Yeah,
it, can you?
I had a question on the fire chief, that's
Can't
$118,000. Is that just not split out to PERS and health insurance at this point?
No, we just put the dollar figure in as a placeholder because that is the revenue that is generated from the increases. I didn't feel comfortable this time splitting it out because I don't know the cost of a fire chief / paramedic. So we basically just left that dollar figure right there in that line
Okay,
item.
so we're not anticipating spending that on
No,
the fire chief?
no, that would have to be split out through the other areas of the personal services at that time.
And maybe not even to that level?
No, that's
Alright.
correct.
Thank you.
Bobby, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm also confused about the way we are going to rely on funds. We have a line item in the budget, and we're relying on funds that may or may not be there. I did not watch the council meeting Monday, so I mean, all I know is what I hear, and I understand that the proposal to double the fire suppression fee. Now, was that passed? Is that an allowable question, sir?
Was it passed? Yes.
Okay, it was passed, all right. So in response to that, we've changed the revenue for the emergency services budget. But we also have to expect that that increase in fee has to be put before a vote of the voters, correct?
This was done as an emergency measure, which is allowed.
No,
No.
it was done illegally.
Yeah, but it is administrative, but it was as an emergency. It wasn't as administrative.
Just administrative.
All right, thank you for the clarification. To me, we're putting the cart before the horse here is, I want to talk about, I know a budget is a guide, I understand that, but how can we rely on an amount of money that I'm also in agreement that will most likely be turned down from my perspective by the voters. Now, let's play that through. If that happens, if it goes to a vote and it's voted down, what, are we gonna reconvene as a budget committee? It would seem more prudent to me to wait for that until it is approved by a vote of the people, rather than add it as a revenue prior to the vote.
I understand your feelings. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Devin?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Question for Devin. Looking in, you're decreasing the uniforms or to that amount. Is that going to be with the new volunteers that have been coming on? Is there going to be enough monies for the uniforms for the volunteers for us to purchase the pants, and t-shirts, and those things, and boots, and all the
Yeah,
safety
it'll
things?
be tight, but it won't be replacing any uniforms for current members, we'll just be buying.
Brad and then Darlene.
My primary concern is the dollar amount for travel and training, I think is probably substantially low at $1,000. Is there a place that we can find funds to adequately, and what is an adequate amount for travel and training?
I would love to have more money in travel and training. Travel and training is important to get firefighters out to classes that are outside the area, outside the city. Of course, all of our EMS training and fire training that is required can all be done in-house. I mean, it honestly can be. That's definitely not the best of situations. There are times we want to bring an instructor in. Instructors cost money, they don't come in for free. You know, only having the $1,000 there, I'd love to see it increase to $1,500 or $2,500, but at the same time, you gotta balance the budget too, so.
Right.
I mean, you gotta keep fuel in the vehicles and do things that are necessary too, so I mean, you can only do so much with the
Right.
money you have.
Okay.
So, more money in training would always be nice.
Darlene?
Just wanted to add to Bobby's comment, these revenues that we're budgeting tonight were illegally gotten by council. The attorney did state Monday night that this does not fall under the emergency clause. Therefore, this was not given to a vote of the people to increase these fees that you are budgeting. Therefore, these are against our city charter. They're against our initiatives that the voters passed. Now, if we think that we have a community that supports these fee increases, then we put it to the vote of the people, like the people said. It's the law.
Darlene, this was done administratively. That's how
It
it was
is
done.
illegally gotten money, and we can anticipate that we will have a supplemental budget to reduce these revenues. And I will not be a part either. I'm not gonna resign from budget because I'll be here for the next budget. I have another year. But some of you probably won't be here because these are illegally. You know, if you feel that you have the support of the community to raise these fees, then do the right thing and put it to the people and ask them to vote. That's what the people said they wanted. They voted and said, we want to say in our fee increases and our tax increases, and it's in our charter, it's adopted in our charter. It was found constitutional, upheld in law, and we're not the only city that has this exact same initiative in their charter. Okay, and it was completely ignored, and I think the community needs to know that. If you want to increase fees, fine, lobby for it. Say why you need it, where you're going to get them, and go to the people and convince them. They have every right to determine how their tax dollars are spent and how what this budget committee and the city council does to reflects on them economically, their money. Okay? This is not right what you're doing, and as this budget committee knows, you can read the charter, you can talk to your attorney, it was illegally gotten money.
Our attorney already gave his opinion on this, thank you. Jeff, I think you were next, and then Karen. Jeff?
Devin, for the training on that, how much can Cascade Locks expect to partner with the other mutual aid partners and help reduce the cost for that and share those costs? So obviously countywide, this is an issue with training and stuff. How, as the fire chief of Hood River and knowing the other agencies, how much can we save or expect to help the mutual aid help out when it comes to training?
Well, it can help out a lot. You have joint trainings with each other. I mean, that's the way you run your normal training program. What this is our normal drill nights. This is not drill night training.
Yeah, it's the bring an instructor in.
This is the extra other training that there is out there to do to career enhancement, professional enhancement of the firefighter and the EMTs. So what that does is it takes out all the extra training we can do for $1,000. We're still going to have drill nights. We're still going to have those things. This is also the ability to buy. Well, I guess there's $150 for public kit. Well, that's the wrong budget. This is what we buy our new manuals with, or new books that are out there for training on curriculums. You know, we just get through another year with the same stuff we have. So
if we bring another EM or another a volunteer on, we'll be able to send them through an EMT class unless it's a local.
No, EMT classes are about $30,000 or so. College education.
College course, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, right.
So, yeah, this is nothing to do with our in-house training, our drill nights. This is all
The external.
for professional education.
Thank you.
I think Karen, then Gail, and then Tina,
Okay, I have a couple
and then,
questions.
and then Lance.
Under the interfund transfers, I noticed that there's the $45,000 that wasn't there before. I just need an understanding of what this is.
Can I answer?
Please.
Okay. Looking at the current cash flow for the EMS, projecting what we're gonna be at the end of May and looking at what we would be at June, we're expecting to have to transfer $45,000 to cover a cash deficit, so that's what that is. The general fund will loan fire EMS $45,000, but that loan will go before council by the end of June, requesting that they pay it back within 6 months. And they have property tax coming in that they should be able to do that.
Thank you.
That's what that's for.
My second question, and it's the difference between what's in the book and what's here, is that this doesn't include anything for administration department, and I wasn't sure if it should.
Unless administration is in the back, last page.
Oh, sorry, I
That's
missed
okay.
that.
That's for administration.
Thank you.
Are you through, Karen?
That was everything for
Okay,
now.
thank you. I think Gail's next.
Hey, looking for spots to help with training, on, contract services for the computer. Year to date, I'm losing titles on this page here, but, well, we don't have prior year actuals, I guess. Right, for that line item.
Yeah, there is, well, there's not hardly any, that's correct.
Right.
We didn't spend any money on computers, the prior years.
Well, and this year, it shows $1,000.
That is because, we have looked over since the fire station issues. I've had my IT guy in, and we are trying to get the computers up and running on a server so we control some passwords. And so the fire department has some emails, because as part of the city and public records law, we have to capture all those emails. We have to do some extensive work in putting a server down there, which we have the server. We have to be able to connect it up here. So I'm estimating that. I don't even know if that's gonna be enough, but we will work with what we got and do what we can to get the computer system up and running down at the fire station.
Well, if you're estimating it, is it possible to estimate it at 1,000 and move 3,000 into training?
I cannot, I will not be able to have my IT guy do it for $1,000.
Okay. All right, I just thought I'm just going down the line.
If you wanna lower it to 3, we will do our best to accomplish what we need to do in 3, but, in order to link it up here, we have to put some radios up on some telephone poles, light poles, utility poles, sorry. To be able to get that connection.
Tina?
My first question was exactly what Gail just asked. The second question I have, like Bobby, I also wasn't at the council meeting on Monday, so I'm out of the loop also about what happened. Could Paul maybe do a summary of how it passed as administrative and what did the lawyers say, so that I'm more informed when I vote on these? Is that okay to do that here, to let us know what happened? Briefly, just if it passes administrative, how is it, how does the lawyer say that that's okay to do that? And is that temporary until it goes to vote, or is it, how is it gonna work?
What the attorney advised the council is that these These are administrative and not legislative issues. The council took action to modify or change existing resolutions and not ordinances. The council's action replaces all of these fees with a 2-year sunset. Or these fees will be in place for 2 years. And Mayor, if I misstate with the intention of council, please correct me. It was the council's intent to get support for emergency services for a 2-year temporary situation until a more permanent solution can be discovered.
So 2-year sunset. So does it also go to vote in November, or is the 2-year sunset the administrative change for 2 years without going to vote? I mean, I'm trying to
No,
understand.
as the council has acted, with the advice of their attorney, does not go to a vote.
Okay.
These are seen as administrative decisions and not legislative decisions.
Lance?
Thank you.
You had a later question.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, it's been stated that there's funds in this budget that are not legally obtained, and I just want to clarify that's actually an opinion, and it was stated more like a fact. So they're actually not illegal, but I understand that some people have the opinion that they're illegal. And I can certainly understand the concept of someone who thinks that, my gosh, here's some illegal money, now in the budget, not wanting to participate. That does make a lot of sense to me. I think it's also clear from what we've seen over the last couple of years that we do have some people that simply do not want to fund fire EMS services in Cascade Locks. And so you just have to balance, those interests with what's in the community's best interest. And it's pretty clear the community has spoken, they want fire EMS services here. And so, and I think it's good for the budget committee to take a look at funding those options. Just a couple of points though, on how that's going to be accomplished here. And in trying to get this budget in a way that it can support the fire department on a sustainable financial basis, I think it's important that we recognize what Virginia brought up in public comment, which is those ambulance revenues are hard to predict. It's hard to say what we're going to get. And certainly what we've learned over the last year is that if you don't have a paramedic, if you don't have a fire department, an ambulance, emergency services department making ambulance calls, you can't get that revenue. And so until we have, and the billing as well, that she brought up, that until we have a billing procedure that we know is reliable, that we know we can count on, until we have personnel that can provide advanced life support and ambulance service, it's very difficult for me to support counting those ambulance service fees as part of the budget. I understand that the staff has been very conservative in the way they're estimating these, but I think that in my mind, part of that 2-year window of trying to take steps to sustainably fund the department is to try to get us off of that projected what we might get if we have these different things, if we have a reliable billing procedure, if we have personnel that can answer the calls and provide that advanced life support service. So maybe the numbers don't work out, maybe you have to include part of it, but if you look at that item that says fire ambulance service fees, $80,000, and you juxtapose that against what Virginia handed out in the packet, I think that's something we have to really look at as, gosh, can we count on that if we're planning this budget? And I definitely support taking a second look at that. I can support Randy's motion to tentatively approve it, but because I think it's pretty clear to me that these are, you know, I don't have concerns about whether it's legal or not. I think, is it realistic is my big question. And I think we definitely need to take a look at that. But
Thank
the point is, you know, we're doing a budget that's gonna provide emergency medical services to the community. And it's, you know, maybe some people don't support that, or maybe it's hard to say I don't support that, but the actions are, let's not support it. So I encourage the budget committee to support a sustainable department and to provide those funds for it.
And I'm glad you cleared that up about illegal. Thank you. And I think Darlene had her hand up next, and then Jeff.
I don't think we have a statement from the attorney, do we? Do we have minutes or a statement from the attorney? Because my recollection of what the attorney said last night was that most charters are administration, but he wasn't sure what ours were. He was going to check into it because, as Gary Munkoff pointed out to him, that ours was legislature and that it would uphold. And I don't think he had an opinion. He was going to look into it. And unless you have a statement from him saying that it is legal, I uphold the voters and the will of the people. Because we all know what they said. They said without a vote of the people, you can't increase fees or taxes. And that's very clear. I can read that in our charter. Everyone can read that in the charter. You took an oath to support and uphold the charter. And this budget committee does support the fire department. We have always supported the fire department. Last year, we paid the city and the budget committee, paid a whole bunch of city debt, verbal agreements, and debt that this city council ignored, this administration ignored. And we did not cut $1 of funding to the fire department, not $1. 45% of the property tax revenue goes to the fire department. $20,000 of Multnomah County contract goes to the fire department. None of that was reduced. All of their ambulance billing, when they do the billing,
Just salary.
goes to that department. No revenue was reduced.
No?
No revenue. Now, I can't help it if they don't submit the billing.
No wages?
Thank you. I think Jeff had his hand up, then Bobby, and then Tom, or was it Tom and then Bobby? Okay.
Tom, oh, okay. I thought Tom was first. Sorry. I'm going to go back to the training. The telephone was decreased by $1,000, and it goes to, it's at $3,000. How much of that is, how many lines does the fire department have, and how much of that $3,000 can you actually bring out of that more? Is that long-distance phone calls? Is that just additional lines, or how does that, you come up with that $3,000 figure for the telephone?
Thank you. It's your phone.
You pay the bills.
The decrease in $1,000 is there's a couple of cell phones that are being paid for right now that aren't used. We used to have cell phones on the ambulances before cell phones really became, everybody has one now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of other phone bills that I think we could reduce out of that. That's why I recommend reducing $1,000 out of that to be able to save that money.
I guess, do you know what the yearly cost to have a phone line, or however many phone lines you've got going into the fire station? Because where I work at, they've taken all the phones out of our offices, and where you only have a few landlines, and we're relying on our own cell phones that are issued to us, but it's more of the, how much can we reduce some of these smaller things to help out another issue to, you know, another $1,000 somewhere else can help you out.
Yeah, I don't know what the annual cost of the phones are. There's two phone lines to the station. And I believe one of them is a fax line and one of them is the main phone line. That's it. So you only have one phone line there and a fax line that goes there. But then there's other telephone costs that can be reduced. That's what that $1,000 reduction is. I think you're already pretty much to the minimum, unless you don't have a phone at the fire station, which you get a phone at the fire station.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I have the opinion too that it's an illegal taking of the people's money, and that's an opinion. But even the lawyer's statement is an opinion, but apparently you believe it's a fact the other way. I mean, it's all opinion. So it's an opinion too, not a fact. You speak as it's a fact. It's a fact, it's an opinion. And that's what it is, an opinion. It has to hold up, it has to hold up to the scrutiny of the courts if somebody decides to take it to court. So that's where it's at. My issue, because I think everybody wants to fund, my issue is, everybody was talking that, that the ambulance funds, when everything was going good, there's plenty of money coming in, it's gonna pay everything for us. And now we're saying, it won't pay everything for us. And but what we could do is just keep hiring more people. If we keep hiring more people, we're going up, but I think the facts state that it won't do it. You can keep hiring more people, and that's my issue. My issue is not that, that we go out after money. My first issue is a management issue, and that's what I've been struggling for and fighting for the whole time. We've had a mismanagement, in my opinion, and we've never done anything about the mismanagement. So what we do is we just made to me, the council last night just went and gave more money to potentially dump down a hole without taking care of, without really addressing the management that was going on. So that's all, so all this money you're giving and all looks good and it's all going well, could very well all disappear on you and not go anywhere, just as all the last money did. And nobody, there's still lots of bills out there with the FEMA, there's still lots of issues with the FEMA grant. There's lots of issues with other things. We didn't want to pay our bills. I mean, that's mismanagement. That we spent so many years not even paying the bill on the thing, that we can keep pushing it down the road. Now, we're gonna give some money here for a couple of years to keep pushing it down the road. And that's my issue, is mismanagement. We need to stop it somewhere, because in my opinion, we keep going further and further in the hole. And now, in my opinion, we've taken illegal action to offset what the citizens wanted. They want us to prove it to them. We don't want to prove it to them, because we don't think we can prove it to them. So we've done, in my opinion, an illegal action to go beyond them. So I have a hard time supporting it, only because I don't think we've taken care of we've taken care of the problem, not from what I can see. And it is a financial problem, but it's a mismanagement financial problem. So that's what I'm at.
Thank you. I do have a problem with that, with the use of the word illegal. That is an opinion. That's all it is.
That's not an opinion?
It's an opinion,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I said was an opinion.
Okay. Bobby.
So I'm good with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't support this because you want to get away from the word illegal. I understand that. I think there's, Jeff, you would know, there's the letter of the law and there's the intent of the law. And I think the intent that people voted on and passed was that the city would not raise fees. And so, I can do a lot of things that are legal, but they're still wrong. They're morally wrong, or they're, my neighbors think it's wrong. And I think this is what we're doing here with how we're getting these fees. We can argue back and forth all night, but to me, that's what we're doing. It's not illegal, but it can still be wrong. Because in my opinion, the people said we don't want to raise any fees without a vote of the people. Now, the Emergency Services Committee had a poll that they sent out, correct? And there were some of those comments, and even how the poll was done was very contentious. But when I read some of the comments that the poll, the people that filled it out, the comments were not all positive as to raising fees or giving the fire department more money. I don't recall seeing anybody say, we just don't like the fire department, we're not going to pay for it no matter what. Could have been there, I don't recall them. But I think a good share of those people that did respond said they didn't want to increase fees or the amount of money that went to the fire department. So I'm struggling with that. Is our own Emergency Services Committee, their findings are not being followed either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, I think you,
To kind of dredge up an old issue, I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, anything on the FEMA grant. Was there any area here that we have money still going towards that? Or is that done as at the end of this budget? Or end of 2012 budget?
There are no expenses related to the FEMA grant in the proposed budget.
Okay, so, okay, that's all I want to know.
Lance and then Gail.
So, Public Safety Task Force came to council, council unanimously accepted their recommendation. And one of those was to hire a fire chief right away, not wait until next year, not kick it on down the road, but do it now. So I'm struggling with people who are saying, oh, we support the fire department, we support the work, we support the, you know, what the community's, you know, responses in the surveys, and we support the recommendations of the Public Safety Task Force, but, and yet are not willing to take the step of, you know, putting their money where their mouth is and say, yeah, okay, support means we follow that recommendation. Support means we provide the department with what it needs, what we know it needs, what we've clearly established that it needs, which is that hire the fire chief / paramedic right away. So, as I said earlier, I can understand people who have their opinions about how this budget has come together and not wanting to participate. But I sure would love to hear the ideas that people have about a different way to get to a point where we can meet that need of the community, which is a fire chief / paramedic person right away. And I'm still waiting to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail and then Darlene.
Back to the dollars and cents.
Thank you.
Under expenses, you got the money for the fire chief. You also have workman's comp at $4,000.
That can come up.
No, you can't, it can be dropped.
That number, Gail, can be dropped.
Well,
That-
we just
that-
want to move it though, right?
That number, I believe, and I need to recalculate this, I believe can be dropped to, $2,800.
And then move the difference to,
But I would want to recalculate that.
well, you've only got 688 year to date.
That's because the fire chief isn't in there.
Well,
It
you
was
don't have,
budgeted for.
you don't have any of the other, FICA, labor, or, you know, you don't have any of the other that
The work-
budgeted either.
The workers' comp here is for the volunteers.
Oh,
It's not for the fire chief, it's for the
Okay.
volunteers.
okay.
And I believe that can be dropped because a resolution is going before council to change the monthly minimum amount that is the assumed wage,
Okay,
which
Then-
drops our whole
then if it was
Price.
consensus of the committee, the difference could be moved into training and add,
yes, it can.
maybe another $1,000?
Yes, it can. Sure.
That would be my
That's
recommendation.
one area I'd like to do.
You'd ask to have the motion.
Call for consensus.
Now, I'm confused on this tentative motion stuff, so I'll make a motion to reduce workman's comp to whatever's determined.
I think there's a motion on the floor, and you could ask to have it amended.
I'll accept that amendment.
Okay, Phil accepts it.
And I will too.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you said $1,000?
Whatever the difference is.
1,800. 1,800. But we're not sure the difference, so whatever the difference ends up being, you want. Okay.
Right.
Darlene.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit what Tom had said. Hiring paramedics, thinking that's gonna boost the revenue. I think we can look at history. I think our city merged with Hood River. I'm not sure, I think that was Devon Wells. didn't we merge with your department? When we merged, it was
Back in
gonna be a
2002,
year,
2003?
yeah, it was gonna be a year contract. And then
In
it didn't
2002,
even,
yeah.
it didn't last a year, it was like maybe 6 or 8 months. And it was due to, they anticipated a large call response for ambulance too. And when that didn't come in and they couldn't meet their expenses, they said, hey, we can't continue this for a year. Now, I read that in an article in the Hood River News. So I agree, Tom, you can't just hire an ambulance or hire a paramedic and say, okay, now this paramedic's gonna bring me in $100,000, I go to the bank with that. So that's unrealistic. As far as the FEMA expenses, I think they're still out there. We all received an audit report, didn't we? The auditor said it's possible that this budget committee is gonna have to reimburse some FEMA grant expenses. I haven't heard anything back from the auditor that said we don't have to reimburse those. And I think until that's closed, we can still anticipate that we may have to reimburse funds. And the community survey, I read all the responses. We wanted the community's input. There was nothing overwhelming that said, increase my fee. I want a 5-minute response time. There wasn't anything like that. It was pretty level. I mean, there was back and forth. There wasn't anything overwhelming. But you did ask for the community's response, and you should be asking for the community's response now. You have a mayor who develops a task force that brings the community in and says, what do you think about this? Give me your input. Well, I was there, I gave my input. I don't see any of that reflected.
Do you have any suggestions or amendments to the budget
Yeah,
that you would like to bring forth?
I suggest you
Please do, and we'll see if they're
you
accepted.
take these fee increases to a vote of the people, like the
Did you
people have
ask,
said.
did you ask to have that, did you ask to have that as an amendment?
Yeah, let's have that as an amendment, like that'll really happen, right? This has all been pretty predictable all along.
Mr. Chairman?
Devin, let's go.
Can I just address a couple things?
Please.
So I can make sure things are right. The old contract, back in 2003, when we were down here, that wasn't an underestimated revenue that caused the problems in the termination of that contract. That was going out on a limb here, it was an overzealous administrator, City of Hood River Fire Department at that point in time, that had initiated a very bad contract with the City of Castle Rocks. And we've apologized multiple times for that. That fire chief hired 3 full-time employees, thinking that he would be able to cover all 3 full-time employees with that cost, plus putting double coverage down here on overtime 24 hours a day. That's what caused the end of that contract. So it wasn't the fact that he thought he was going to get a bunch of revenue to pay for all those, it was the fact that he just mismanaged that contract.
The call volume wasn't there, correct? Was the call
was the same
volume?
as it was always before.
In the article, it's just, it's online, and that's just what it said, so I'm just repeating what it said.
That's what the news reported, but that chief at that time hired 3 full-time employees and tried to cover 24-hour a day overtime coverage with Cassie locks. Guaranteed that can't happen.
Right.
That would be completely unrealistic to even think that can even happen today's day and age.
And I hope you don't think that we're here wasting your time, because we really do anticipate that these revenues aren't gonna come in as this group expects.
Well, I'm thinking about that too, but if I'm asked my email, I'll say that. The FEMA expenses, there will be no more FEMA expenses related to the radio grant. That is done.
The tower and the property and the survey?
That's not part of the FEMA grant.
Okay, that's separate ones.
We need to make sure we differentiate this whole FEMA thing.
Okay.
I think that's got people up in arms. The FEMA grant for the radio grant that's done.
Has Hood River County paid its $38,000?
They have not. That's because there's no more expenses for the grant. There are some administrative things that need to be finished, and they'll give us that money. Now there is the whole tower thing that's going on, and that's, I don't know where Paul will have to address that. There is a second FEMA grant for equipment that's out there. It's obviously not to $500,000. There's about $30,000 of that grant left, which is a 5% match. And that would come out of our fire supplies and other parts of our budget. Or we say we're not going to spend the rest of that money, and it goes back to FEMA. So there's no more obligations for any grants that we have to pay to FEMA.
Could you clear up one thing? The $38,000 that Hood River County will pay once the radio thing is closed out, I was told by the commander up there that that goes actually to a board and they will vote on that. So is that set in stone or is that a vote?
There's a contract in place that they say they owe Cassie Locks $38,000. Any expense that comes out of the county has to be approved by the board.
Okay, approved,
Thank
so it has to go to the board.
Yes.
Okay.
Tina?
This question is for Chief Wells. I noticed that on line item supplies, materials, fire, I see ambulance increasing, but I see fire going down. So in your opinion, regarding the other workers' comp, if we lower that and we get 1,800 we can put somewhere, between travel and training and supplies, materials, fire, do you see them both being important as being raised where that would need to be split out? The workers' comp money, if it gets moved, split out between the two, or do you see one as more important than the other one? Between travel and training and supplies, fire?
Yes. I believe that if there's enough money that comes out of that workman's comp decrease, we could probably split some between travel and training and materials and supplies fire. The materials and supplies fire, obviously, that will be buying nothing this year, except for maybe replacing some flares, you know, things that we might just expendable materials. Obviously, we're not going to be buying any equipment out of that with $20,000. So any increase in there would be excellent. Only because there's cost of doing business for running fire calls. The reason that the materials and supplies ambulance was increased to $6,000, well, it says it's increased by $2,000. That's one of those costs where if you don't have an ambulance, obviously you don't have ambulance fees. The more ambulance calls you run, the more cost you have. So it's cost of doing business. And we're already at $7,800 this year. Cost of running an ambulance. It costs money. You gotta buy supplies. If you don't have supplies, you can't operate an ambulance. So now that line item goes up as revenues go up also, because you're obviously running ambulance calls that put money back into the budget. So that's why you see an increase in materials and services of ambulances, because that was just way too low. It was half of what we were to spend this year. So we would increase it to $6,000 just to try to get as much possible money put towards that. Materials and supplies fire, that's one of those where you buy as minimal as possible. So the problem also is, and I want everybody to understand, this is absolutely not an optimal budget. I hope you all understand that. This is going to decrease the ability of the fire service to provide services. Just to say that out there real bold, it's going to decrease the ability. This is a very minimal, very minimal budget. No turnouts, we can't buy PPE for that kind of stuff. If we ruin a pair of turnouts, we hope that we do it on the call, that we can get reimbursement for it from a car accident or whatever it may be, insurance to pay for those. This is a very minimal budget. So these numbers, if you ask me a question, can we use more money in that line? I'm obviously going to say yes. So, no department head is going to say no, we don't get any more money. But $1,000 it's $1,000 of fire supplies for an entire year. That's really small.
So if we did travel and training in-house, how much would you need to increase that one by, whereas maybe the rest could go to?
Well, I think when we see the number, however much money we have back, we could probably split some of it out. I'm not sure how much money we're going to have. It'd be nice to be able to put some more into equipment, but at the same time, travel and training is actually more expensive. Honestly, it's half dozen to one, 60.
Okay.
Something like that. There you go. That's it. So 50-50 on where you put it. There we go.
It's also a research year, Devin.
Yeah. That's right. EMS is a research year. 2013 is an ambulance research year, so all of our EMTs have to be recertified. And so that's not necessarily a training expense, but it is an expense where they have to pay for their recertification for their ambulance license, or ambulance certificates. So.
Gail, and then Lance.
You got some over there.
And, okay.
Go ahead. Who are you calling? Who's calling?
Okay. Gail was next.
Well, within materials and services, wherever the money falls, any of those monies can be used for another line item as long as you don't exceed the dollar amount, correct?
As long as I don't exceed the category amount.
Yes.
Yes.
So splitting it here and there may not matter. You could use one for the other.
We can move around the line.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't wanna beat a dead horse here, but, I don't think anybody on council, and I don't believe the task force, was hanging our head on increased revenue. I know I'm not with a paramedic. My motivation for a paramedic would be able to provide a higher level of service, medical treatment, when a call is made, than what BLS can provide. The extra money to me would be gravy, and that's why everything in here for ambulance revenue is pretty conservative, even with the increase that was voted the other night. So, you know, that's kind of a wait and see, month by month type deal. The other thing that with all the opinion and everything, what I haven't heard stated again, there is the intention to have another ballot measure put on the ballot to clarify the charter this November, correct?
So we're doing a referendum.
Yes, yeah, council took direction,
Okay.
gave direction to
Okay,
staff to do
so,
that.
so the intention is, in spite of us having done things now that obviously are debatable, the intention is to go back to the vote of the people and get clarification
After the fact.
after the fact. Because according to our attorney, you can be cynical if you want, according to our attorney, we are within our legal right based upon case histories to increase existing fees as an administrative function as long as we don't take legislative action to introduce new fees.
Thank you. Tom, and then Les.
Yeah, just back to the, to the FEMA for a second. Now the FEMA is covered out. And originally on the FEMA, we were in this for $1,200, so that's why we're all, you know, but right now, the FEMA is covered, but in covering it, we had to cough up $38,000. Right, we paid the $38,000, so we're short that $38,000 until Honduras gets to it. So we're into this $38,000 plus the $1,200. That's how we closed the FEMA grant out, is by giving them $38,000. That had to be in there to close it out. So we gave it to them. So that's casting lots of money into it. Now it's closed out because FEMA goes, we've got the towers and all that. But any other issues that happen, any issues out here, yes, FEMA's out of it. But we're still in it. So there's still, just because FEMA is closed out doesn't mean we still don't have costs that are associated because of the FEMA grant. So I just want to make that
Very much
clear
so.
too.
It's not,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
no, I 100% agree with that. There's a tower issue. It's not a FEMA issue. I just for making sure that people understand it's not a FEMA grant issue.
Right.
It's a tower issue. And there's a big difference between those things. Because you're not dealing with federal money, we're not going to pay the money grant back. That's done. There's a tower issue.
But we're originally in it for $1,300. Now we can potentially be in it
Literary
for,
County still owes the $38,000.
and we're in it for $38,000. So we paid that too, because we had to pay that. That had to be paid to
Yeah,
close
it's
it
all
out.
been paid, yeah.
Right. So we've already got
It's
all
a
our money.
reimbursement from the county.
Right, exactly.
Lance, then Randy.
Let Randy go first, he wants to talk about the tower.
Well, just a clarification on the tower is, you said it was a tower issue. Was the tower an issue and because we had people looking at it, it was discovered it was off of its survey, or what? Why is there an issue with it?
I don't know how it came to fruition, how the tower issue came to fruition. You know, I don't know if that happened probably before you came around too, I don't know. So I don't know how it was discovered. I don't know how it was discovered.
The issue of the tower is that the city located a tower outside of the 50 by 50 easement that the city paid for in 2002, I believe. And so when they got here, this was all mingled together. So we worked on the FEMA grants, and started working on the tower. In order for the, at least initially, the county's condition for releasing the 38 was related to the tower and the city producing a registered survey showing where that 50 by 50 was. We now have the survey. We've had a couple meetings with the county. We have one of the county officials now going and meeting with some of the other fire districts to see if we can't come up with some methodology to partner back with the city to pay for the expense of locating the tower. We have an illegally placed tower outside the 50 by 50. We're still working with the county to get that resolved. We still have to buy the tower, which we estimate to be $13,000. We're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to place a tower up there that meets the requirements that we had with all of the partners in the project. Did that respond to your question?
Yeah, but the original issue started in 2002 then, with a tower going up off of its easement. Is that?
Not 2002.
Well, I thought you said
Started earlier than that.
2002 is when they paid for the easement.
Oh, it was even
2010,
before that.
2010 is when this tower that's in question was erected up there.
Yeah, so in 2002, the city of Cascade Locks paid $4,000 to the property owner to purchase a 50 by 50 easement. When the tower was placed up there, it was outside of that easement.
And that was approximately when?
2010.
When it was placed was 2010.
Okay, Lance and then Darlene.
So, I think Gail brings up a good point. You know, part of why the community spoke through the Public Safety Task Force process that we want a fire chief paramedic right away is because of the level of service that can be provided. Okay? And that's a restoration of what we had at the beginning of 2011 and that we lost during that year. So, and even right now, you know, it's not something, I mean, we kind of have a bandage approach to providing that service, but, I mean, I just think last summer my grandfather had a stroke, and thank God he lived in Sandy, where they have a funded, stable fire department that was able to respond and provide services. Because currently in Cascade Locks, if that were to happen, if he lived here, you know, right now we have to either wait to get a response from Troutdale, Hood River, or somewhere else, or we can just hope that one of our two volunteers that have that the ability to provide services at the advanced level are not at one of their full-time jobs, that they're available to respond. I mean, I think it's a good thing that we have those volunteers, but those two paramedics we have they have full-time jobs. So right now we're just kind of either hoping or waiting, you know, in the case of that. So and as we learned, you know, those extra minutes, the extra half hour to wait or whatever can make a huge difference in the you know, in that kind of a situation. So I think that is part of the reason why the community wants and is asking us to provide that fire chief paramedic position right away, rather than waiting another year. Now, Mary Ann, I want to go back to I still have the concern, the issue about that, you know, charging the ambulance service fees, because hopefully we can start to provide advanced life support services, because that's what the community wants, that's what the community needs. But until then, and until we get this billing situation figured out, I'm questioning whether or not it's realistic to expect that much of an increase. So, and earlier you touched on the 118,000 number, 77, 788 that you put into the fire chief, the personnel category. I don't see anything like that in the previous years. I'm just wondering if that's something that could conceivably be reduced to reflect this concern that we might not have those same revenues coming in as are listed in the highlighted portions above. Could you just, I mean, is that realistic in this budget to say, let's reduce what we expect to get, from those fees? And then maybe balance that out with, let's reduce what we expect to pay for personnel expense?
I was basing the original 50,000, I based it on the actual this year. We are gonna make $50,000 this year in ambulance service fees. We got a $7,000 check in there right now.
So that's something that's being carried forward that we already have?
No, I'm just basing on possible revenues for the next year. It's history. And when you base a budget, you look at what your history is. So I'm basically doing conservative numbers saying, okay, if we're gonna make 50,000 this year with all the turmoil that we had, the 3 months we didn't respond, however, I think we can do the 50,000 again. The other 30,000 came from the increase in ambulance service fees, which was 160% below what Hood River was 160% higher than we were. So by increasing our ambulance fees, if we have the same number of runs as we did in 10-11, we should be able to do this. That's all I'm saying. If you want to change that conservative number down or not bank on it, that's fine. I'm just giving you a projection of the increase that council took in the ambulance service fee restructure of billing. I mean, of the ambulance service fees that they did.
Yeah, and I understand that you're budgeting conservatively. I guess where I'm coming from is I think we have a lot of ifs, even with that. I think, as in my mind, we have to solve that billing procedure, and we haven't. I haven't heard a good answer for that. And at least, right, we will have those conversations. But when we're doing the budget, I would like us to be more conservative in the sense that we really don't know. The only thing that can happen as a result of that is that maybe we generate more revenue than we thought we would. You know, and so to me, that's a good thing. That, you know, maybe we can start to address the fund deficits or the declining beginning balance issues that our budget has, if we start to do it that way. So, I mean, I'd like us to. I mean, it doesn't look like it's possible given the deficit that we inherited from last year, but I'd like us to, at least for this 2-year window, to get off those projected revenues completely and to have some stable funding so that at the end of the 2 years we can look back and say, well, what was the actual revenue when we had, you know, hopefully had a fire chief paramedic in place, and then we'll have that information, and we'll also have that reserve so that we can start to say, well, would we like to get back onto projected revenues, or are we comfortable with the current format? I mean, that's part of the purpose of creating that 2-year window of getting the department back on track. So I guess my question really is about how, if we were interested in reducing that projected revenue, then is that a place, I mean, that 118, is that a place where that could happen?
Depends on what you want for fire chief paramedic and how much you're willing to pay them.
I mean, I'm just trying to compare it to those past numbers where the total is 79 1 year and 99 the year that we had the paid on-call position. So is 100, I mean, we don't have a paid on-call position. That was also one of the things that was eliminated last year. So would the 100,000 be realistic there, given that?
I think I'd have to defer that to Devin on what he thinks that we can hire a fire chief paramedic for.
Okay. So, let me address the first thing. Go ahead, priority. I'm not sure what you mean by a billing situation. Because billing is done, it's taken care of. There's no situation anymore.
Well,
there's no situation anymore. I told you that at last council meeting, there's no situation.
But there was.
There was before you had me do it.
Yeah.
But there's not a situation anymore.
It was 4 months late.
Yeah, there's a paid staff now doing it, that's me. When you had a volunteer.
You were paid staff 4 months ago.
And I had volunteers doing it. And I learned my lesson, and I apologized to you in the council meeting that said volunteers doing billing did not work. And so I took that back over. So it's my job now to do billing. When you had a paid paramedic that was doing the billing on a routine basis in the Springfield. That's all it is. There's no process that we have to do here. All we have to do is take the reports, make sure it's done fully, send it to Springfield. That's our process. That's it. There's nothing more that we do here. That's it. City of Castle Rock does nothing for ambulance billing. We send it to Springfield.
Just to clarify that though, you're saying that the process is to have a paid person, a staff person.
That's me right now.
Right, that's you right now, but, you know, are you?
You have it in your budget to hire somebody.
Right, and I just want to clarify that, you know, that's what the community's asked for, and that's also an important part of
Very much so.
the billing process, which is why I'm bringing the billing process up.
Yeah.
Not to criticize you,
No, it's fine.
but to say that, you know, the community's asked for a paid person, for a fire chief or paramedic, to provide the ALS services, but also it helps us address the billing process.
Exactly.
So
it sends the bills in.
you know, I think it's worth making clear that if there's a proposal that doesn't include hiring that person, then we're back in the problem where we'll be asking volunteers to do them, and you found that didn't work.
It doesn't work.
So I think I just wanted to clarify, that's part of the process, is the paid person.
The paid person is part of the process. Somebody's responsible for doing that billing. Taking the bills, putting them together how Springfield needs them, and sending them down there. That's the whole process. That's all it is. It's really a pretty simple process.
If you have a paid person.
If you have someone, yes. A volunteer can do it, but obviously the volunteers we had right now weren't able to do it. So, now I just want to clarify here. From July 2011 to November of 2011, you virtually had no response, Cassie Lux. Did you realize that? You had 4 to 5 months of virtually no response.
What was that?
July of 2011 to November. Okay, there was very few responses that were created there. That was during the dark ages of Cassie Lux here. December 11th, volunteers all came back on board. We started responding again. Now that's where I had to make the apologies because I didn't follow up on the ambulance billing as quickly as I possibly could have. But since April, all the billing's done, taken care of. There's charts that are in there right now, so there are probably some charts in that box that haven't been billed, but that's good. If you have a call tonight, there'll be one tomorrow too that's not done. So there's things being handled there. So for about 6 or 7 months, charts weren't sent into Cassie Locks. There wasn't ambulances being answered. Call volume was extremely low here. Billable call volumes were extremely low here. Not a completely anomaly. That was not a normal year. You can't look at July of 2011 through June of 2012 as a normal year in Cassie Locks Fire and EMS. So the only thing I've done on my papers, and I don't show the 8, 9, or 7, 8 budgets for what was received in revenues. But out of those 2 years, the average is $130,000 a year for ambulance revenue. I don't know what the previous year were. Obviously, as you get more years, you get a better average of ambulance calls.
What were those years again?
8, 9. I don't have any data before 9, 10. Whatever's on the sheet.
8, 9, 9.
I'm sure there's obviously ambulance revenue. Oh, these are ambulance calls.
For the last 10 years.
Sweet. All right. I'll have to add that up. But
About 54,000 in average, $54,000 a year.
well, you gotta think that before 7, 8, before 6, 7, you didn't have a big staff.
Right.
Wherever was that, so there's a big difference there.
Right.
So you gotta kind of cut the 4 or 5 off there. So if you want to compare big staff. So,
Right, but then you look down here, you see 35,000. So it just varies.
Let's get into that later on. We've got several other people waiting to talk.
But anyway, my point being, what I want to make is, for 5 months now, you've had ambulances going out the door, some ALS, mostly BLS, because you have 2 volunteer paramedics. We talked about that multiple times. And you'll have $50,000 out of that 5 months. So that's $10,000 a month, and that's an all volunteer service. $10,000 a month, you continue your volunteer service, you're gonna look at about $120,000 a year. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna get that. You'll never hear me say, I guarantee you we're gonna get that much money. I can't even guarantee you're gonna get $1 next year. Because we might not have any ambulance calls. Now, yes, that's unrealistic, we're gonna have ambulance calls. But you can't guarantee ambulance calls. Emergency services are based on a standby model. You pay to have the services available to your citizens. That's the way it is. Now, having an ambulance transport service allows you to reimburse yourself for some of those costs. Ambulances are not profit makers. They're not profits. Cities are not supposed to make profits. Cities recover costs. That's what cities do. So you have an ambulance that generates revenue to help cover the costs of providing ambulance and fire services. So that's what you're trying to do here. So if you take the average and you take it down to $8,000 a month, then that's $96,000. Take it down to $7,000, that's $84,000 a year. And now we're getting about where your average is at. So now you've dropped our averages for this last year, which I told you was an anomaly year for Cassie Lodge Fire and EMS, at $10,000, drop it down to $7,000 a month. And you still got more money than what you're budgeting for revenue. I'm just saying, if you bring yourself in a paramedic that's here, that does the billing, you've got more coverage, because you can't say 40 hours a week of coverage from the paramedic, because there's gonna be trainings and meetings that person has to go to. So you're gonna have more paid coverage than you have now, which is 0. You're gonna have ambulance revenues. You've gotta be conservative. I have no problem, and I do not blame you as a budget committee at all for being very, very conservative on your ambulance revenues. No concern with that. I applaud you for being conservative, because you just don't know what's gonna happen next year for ambulance revenues. But you can be conservative to a point that you detract from the services that you provide. So be cautious to not cut your ambulance revenue predictions so low to the point you can't budget for even an operating. Because, and Mary Ann can correct me if I'm wrong, if you budget this thinking this is what you're gonna make, and you can't change this budget more than, what is it, 10%, 5% a year? So there's a certain amount that you can only change your budget for, oh, yeah, we made more money, or oh, we didn't make as much money as we expected. So you have to be realistic in your budgeting. So just be careful. I think if the budget, if the council, and the direction the council is going to take is to hire a full-time firefighter paramedic, a paramedic down here, that's going to be one of the things you want to hire, you're going to make some revenues. The billings are going to happen because you just got to send them into Springfield. That's all it is. The reason that we didn't get money this year is, for one, we didn't have anybody send those billings in, and for two, we didn't even go on the calls a lot of times there in the summertime. There's a lot of calls that were missed. Skamania County came over here a lot, we came down here a lot. There's a lot of times we just didn't have an ambulance going on that station. That's resolved. We haven't dropped a call in Cassie Locks now for a long time. The volunteers have been tremendous at answering all the ambulance calls. Very few times have they had to call Skamania County over for ALS backup or call for us for ALS backup. They've been knocking it out. That's tremendous for all volunteer ambulance agency to do that. Parkdale, same size agency or so, they have a paid paramedic and a paid chief. They have 2 paid persons. Parkdale. They run about the same number of calls. So I'm just saying, be conservative. I know you're being conservative. I applaud you at that. Don't be so conservative that it cuts you to the bone.
Darlene, and then Tom. And then we're going to call for a vote.
I just wanted to make the comment that we had paid full-time staff here for like 6 years, and the billing didn't get done with paid staff. Billing didn't get done with their paid staff. I was on budget last year. There was bills going out for 2009. I also want to say that we had volunteers that came to the council that said in July, I don't know what you're talking about a no vote, we're not responding. There was 26 or 29, I think he said 26 calls, and we responded to 24 calls. So I don't know why you're saying we're not responding. We're responding to 24 or 26 calls. Now that was what we were told. So as far as we're not responding, I don't know about that. I know that I had a structure fire, and we had a paid full-time chief, and it took 24 minutes for anybody to show up to my place. My husband and I had it out before the fire department got there.
24 minutes?
24 minutes.
From 911 call?
From 911, yep.
I'd have to check the chart on that, because I don't do that.
I did. I have it.
Okay.
I got it from Marita Hatton.
Did you get it from
24
the fire
minutes.
department or from Marita?
I got from, oh no, the fire department said they were there in 14 minutes. Marita had the actual call log, and it was
Big difference,
24 minutes.
big difference.
24 minutes for them to
You need to
get
get
there.
the report from the fire department. Just understand that, if you're gonna make comments about fire department
Okay.
response times, you better get your information from the fire department.
Yeah, I have the actual call, when the call was made and when they arrived.
Can we get that?
You're talking about two different things here.
I could go into your.
We're not interested in anecdotal stuff at this point in time. We're discussing the budget.
So
You
I'm
have
saying
something to do with the budget?
I'm
Like,
saying
bring
that
up?
they said that they were responding to calls, and you're saying that they weren't responding to calls. So I'm just saying that, you know, as a citizen.
You have something to do with the budget that you would like to bring up, not anecdotal
I
stuff
would.
about particular calls.
Yes, I would. Everybody else here is discussing the same issues, Rob.
Would you like to, you have something that you want to bring up about the budget?
Yes, I also want to say the tower, you're talking about the tower expenses. You're talking about a tower that, the city didn't own that tower also. It wasn't the city's tower that they erected, so that's.
How
an
does this
expense.
relate to the budget? Come on, let's get back
Gail,
onto
when
the
you were
budget
talking about
items.
case histories that the lawyer mentioned Monday night, I didn't hear any case histories. I didn't hear any case numbers.
I told you, we're not going to go into stuff having to do with the
Responding to a
council.
comment made by
I
Budget
told you, we're not going to
Committee.
go into stuff having to do with the council. If you have a comment, if you have a question about the budget,
The
that's
charter
fine.
language?
Otherwise, that's it. Tom?
You talked about the charter language, and I'm in the dark with that because that wasn't discussed in an open meeting about changing the charter language. May come out of executive session.
Darlene, that's enough.
Monday.
Darlene, that's enough. Tom?
Well, again, with it, I guess it follows from the budget and in confidence. When we're talking about the emergency services, and we do have some issues going on here, and we're a couple of infightings on it. We did this, we're pitting people against the volunteers. And I think, and there's no doubt in my mind that both sides appreciate the volunteers. One side's being depicted as not appreciating, but they do appreciate the volunteers. The problem with it is Sandy does well because there's good management. Now, I trust Delvin. I trust Delvin to do the job right. I believe he's gonna stay on top and stay focused. I trust Paul to do it. I'm having an issue with the council, and part of the issue, and part of the whether they can do it, it's the management. Again, it's the management of things, and that's where we're stuck with the money.
You're talking about the
Is how we're
past.
gonna manage the budgets.
What happened before he got
How
here?
we're gonna manage the budgets and all that. Well, we still have a council that's now going to potentially hire a fire chief, and the problem is not the volunteers. The problem in my mind is can the council, in my mind is dysfunctional, is can they hire a chief that can do the job that a Devin can do, or are we gonna go back down this same road that we've been going down of losing all these funds that we're trying to manage here on it? And we get a lot of misinformation, and that's what's happening. We keep having to deal with misinformation. The information's getting better, but there's a lot of misinformation. I believe that the misinformation can continue to happen. So the issue isn't the volunteers. The issue is managing the budget, managing how it goes. And the biggest issue for me right now is our council, not the leadership down here. But the whole thing was not working. And that's why we're here, and that's why this is down here again, in my opinion.
Well, in my opinion, we're here to get a budget done and get it passed. And,
Okay.
and as I said, after I had those last two people make comments, I was going to call for a vote, which is exactly what I'm going to do. All in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All against? Thank you. Anybody would like to state their reasoning?
Yes, I'd like to state because these revenues are ill-gotten revenues against our city's charter, excuse me. Our council's not upholding and supporting our city charter.
Thank you for putting it that way. Bobby?
Same, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what's legal and what's illegal, but I do believe that there's you can do a lot of things that are wrong, and they're still legal. And I think the people have spoken, and we should listen to them.
Tom,
Well, I'm good.
you good?
Lance?
I want to,
Lance?
No.
I want to, something I want to say. The council appointed a task force, I think it was back probably in March. That task force met at least 16 times. It had two open houses, and at every single meeting, people were invited to participate and share their thoughts and on everything. It wasn't just a comment period here and there. They were like a part of the task force. I didn't particularly like that. I didn't think that was the way to run a meeting, but that's the way it was run. And everybody got an opportunity to put their thoughts into that. When it was done, we took a vote, and we had an unanimous vote on what we had agreed to. It was 100%. We took a vote of the audience at one point in time, and everybody went for raising the ambulance fees except for one individual. So this is what the public asked for, and it's what we need to give them, in my estimation. Thank you. Let's move on. We're on item number 6. Action on budget items previously reviewed and tentatively approved. A list of items is provided for the committee's review. And I'm going to hand this off to Paul and Mary Ann. I'm sorry. I want a break. Would you like a break? How are you doing on the camera? We can do it now? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. I'm sorry.
Uncle Rob, I've got to go.
That is done.
The tower and the property and the survey?
That's not part of the FEMA grant.
Okay, that's
So
separate
we
ones.
need to make sure we differentiate this whole FEMA thing.
Okay.
So I think that's got people up in arms. The FEMA grant for the radio grant that's done.
Has Hood River
The
County
bill
paid
to
its
pay-
$38,000?
They have not. That's because there's no more expenses for the grant. There are some administrative things that need to be finished, and they'll give us that money. Now, there is the whole tower thing that's going on, and that's, I don't know where Paul will have to address that. There is a second FEMA grant for equipment that's out there. It's obviously not to $500,000. There's about $30,000 of that grant left, which is a 5% match. And that would come out of our fire supplies and other parts of our budget. Or we say we're not going to spend the rest of that money, and it goes back to FEMA. So there's no more obligations for any grants that we have to pay to FEMA.
Could you clear up one thing? The $38,000 that Hood River County will pay once the radio thing is closed out. I was told by the commander up there that goes actually to a board and they will vote on that. So is that set in stone, or is that a vote?
There's a contract in place that they say they owe Cascade Locks $38,000. Any expense that comes out of the county has to be approved by the board.
Okay, approved,
Thank
so it has to go to the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Tina?
This question is for Chief Wells. I noticed that on line item supplies, materials, fire, I see ambulance increasing, but I see fire going down. So in your opinion, regarding the other workers' comp, if we lower that and we get 1,800 we can put somewhere, between travel and training and supplies, materials, fire, do you see them both being important as being raised, where that would need to be split out? The workers' comp money, if it gets moved, split out between the two, or do you see one as more important than the other one? Between travel and training and supplies, fire?
Yes. I believe that if there's enough money that comes out of that workman's comp decrease, we could probably split some between travel and training and materials and supplies fire. The materials and supplies fire, obviously, that will be buying nothing this year, except for maybe replacing some flares, things that we might just expendable materials. Obviously, we're not going to be buying any equipment out of that. It's $1,000. So any increase in there would be excellent. Only because there's cost of doing business for running fire calls. the reason that the materials and supplies ambulance was increased to 6,000, well, it says it's increased by 2,000. That's one of those costs where if you don't have an ambulance, obviously you don't have ambulance fees. The more ambulance calls you run, the more cost you have. So it's cost of doing business. And we're already at $7,800 this year. Cost of running an ambulance, it costs money. You gotta buy supplies. If you don't have supplies, you can't operate an ambulance. So now that line item goes up as revenues go up also, because you're obviously running ambulance calls that put money back into the budget. So that's why you see an increase in materials and services of ambulances, because that was just way too low. It was half of what we already spent this year. So we would increase it to 6,000 just to try to get as much possible money put towards that. Materials and supplies fire, that's one of those where you buy as minimal as possible. So the problem also is, I mean, I want everybody to understand, this is absolutely not an optimal budget. I hope you all understand that, because this is going to decrease the ability of the fire service to provide services. Just to say that out there real bold, it's going to decrease the ability. This is a very minimal, very minimal budget. No turnouts, no, we can't buy PPE for that kind of stuff. If we ruin a pair of turnouts, we hope that we do it on the call, that we can get reimbursement for it from a car accident or whatever it may be, insurance to pay for those. This is a very minimal budget. So these numbers, if you ask me a question, can we use more money in that line item, I'm obviously going to say yes. So, I mean, no department head is going to say, no, we don't get any more money. But, you know, $1,000 it's $1,000 of fire supplies for entire years. I mean, that's really small.
So if we did travel and training in-house, how much would you need to increase that one by, whereas maybe the rest could go to?
Well, I think when we see the number, however much money we have back, we could probably split some of it out. I'm not sure how much money we're going to have. It'd be nice to be able to put some more into equipment, but at the same time, travel and training is actually more expensive. Honestly, it's half dozen of one, 60. Something like that.
Something like that.
There you go. That's it. So, you know, 50-50 on where you put it.
It's also a research year, Devin.
Yeah. That's right. EMS is a research year. I mean, 2013 is an ambulance research year, so all of our EMTs have to be recertified. And so that's not necessarily a training expense, but it is an expense of what they have to pay for their recertification for their ambulance license, or ambulance certificates. So.
Gail, and then Lance.
You got some over there too.
And, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Who are you calling? Who'd you call?
Okay. Gail was next.
Well, within materials and services, wherever the money falls, any of those monies can be used for another line item as long as you don't exceed the dollar amount, correct?
As long as I don't exceed the category amount.
Yes.
Yes.
So splitting it here and there may not matter, you could use one for the other.
We can move around one.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't wanna beat a dead horse here, but, I don't think anybody on council, and I don't believe the task force, was hanging our head on increased revenue. I know I'm not with a paramedic. My motivation for a paramedic would be able to provide a higher level of service, medical treatment, when a call is made than what BLS can provide. The extra money to me would be gravy, and that's why everything in here for ambulance revenue is pretty conservative, even with the increase that was voted the other night. So, you know, that's kind of a wait and see month by month type deal. The other thing that with all the opinion and everything, what I haven't heard stated again, there is the intention to have another ballot measure put on the ballot to clarify the charter this November, correct?
So we're during a referendum.
Yes, yeah, council took direction,
Okay.
gave direction to
Okay,
staff to do
so
that.
so the intention is in spite of us having done things now that obviously are debatable, the intention is to go back to the vote of the people and get clarification
After the fact.
after the fact. Because according to our attorney, you can be cynical if you want. According to our attorney, we are within our legal right based upon case histories to increase existing fees as an administrative function as long as we don't take legislative action to introduce new fees.
Thank you. Tom, and then Lance.
Yeah, just back to the, to the FEMA for a second. Now the FEMA is covered out. And originally on the FEMA, we were in this for $1,200, so that's why we're all, you know, but right now, the FEMA is covered, but in covering it, we had to cough up $38,000. Right, we paid the $38,000, so we're short that $38,000 until Honduras gets it to us. So we're into this $38,000 plus the $1,200. That's how we closed the FEMA grant out, is by giving them $38,000. That had to be in there to close it out. So we gave it to them. So that's casting lots of money into it. Now it's closed out because FEMA goes, we've got the towers and all that. But any other issues that happen, any issues out here, yes, FEMA's out of it. But we're still in it. So there's still, just because FEMA is closed out doesn't mean we still don't have costs that are associated because of the FEMA grant. So I just want to make that
Very much
clear
so.
too.
It's not,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
no, I 100% agree with that. There's a tower issue. It's not a FEMA issue. I just for making sure people understand it's not a FEMA grant issue.
Right.
It's a tower issue. And there's a big difference between those things. Because you're not dealing with federal money, we're not going to pay the money grant back. That's done. There's a tower issue.
But we're originally in it for $1,300. Now we can potentially be in it
Literary
for,
County still owes the $38,000.
and we're in it for $38,000. So we paid that too, because we had to pay that. That had to be paid to
Yeah,
close
it's
it
all
out.
been paid, yeah.
Right. So we've already got
It's
a
a
lot of money.
reimbursement from the county.
Right, exactly.
Lance, then Randy.
Let Randy go first, he wants to talk about the tower.
Well, just a clarification on the towers, you said it was a tower issue. Was the tower an issue, and because we had people looking at it, it was discovered it was off of its survey, or what? Why is there an issue with it?
I don't know how it came to fruition, how the tower issue came to fruition. You know, I don't know if that happened probably before you came around too, I don't know. So I don't know how it was discovered. I don't know how it was discovered.
The issue of the tower is that the city located a tower outside of the 50 by 50 easement that the city paid for in 2002, I believe. And so when I got here, this was all mingled together. So we worked on the FEMA grants and started working on the tower. In order for at least initially, the county's condition for releasing the 38 was related to the tower and the city producing a registered survey showing where that 50 by 50 was. We now have the survey. We've had a couple meetings with the county. We have one of the county officials now going and meeting with some of the other fire districts to see if we can't come up with some methodology to partner back with the city to pay for the expense of locating the tower. We have an illegally placed tower outside the 50 by 50. We're still working with the county to get that resolved. We still have to buy a tower, which we estimate to be $13,000. We're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to place a tower up there that meets the requirements that we had with all of the partners in the project. Did that respond to your question?
Yeah, but the original issue started in 2002 then, with a tower going up off of its easement. Is that?
Not 2002.
Well, I thought you said
It started earlier than that.
2002 is when they paid for the easement.
Oh, it was even
2010
before that.
2010 is when this tower that's in question was erected up there.
Yeah, so in 2002, the city of Cascade Locks paid $4,000 to the property owner to purchase a 50 by 50 easement. when the tower was placed up there, it was outside of that easement.
And that was approximately when?
2010.
When it was placed was 2010.
Okay, Lance and then Darlene.
So, I think Gail brings up a good point. You know, part of why the community spoke through the Public Safety Task Force process that we want a fire chief paramedic right away is because of the level of service that can be provided. Okay? And that's a restoration of what we had at the beginning of 2011 and that we lost during that year. So, and even right now, you know, it's not something, I mean, we kind of have a bandage approach to providing that service, but, I mean, I just think last summer my grandfather had a stroke, and thank God he lived in Sandy, where they have a funded, stable fire department that was able to respond and provide services, because currently in Cascade Locks, if that were to happen, if he lived here, you know, right now we have to either wait to get a response from Troutdale, Hood River, or somewhere else, or we can just hope that one of our two volunteers that have that the ability to provide services at the advanced level are not at one of their full-time jobs, that they're available to respond. I mean, I think it's a good thing that we have those volunteers, but those two paramedics we have they have full-time jobs. So right now we're just kind of either hoping or waiting, you know, in the case of that. So and as we learned, you know, those extra minutes, the extra half hour to wait or whatever can make a huge difference in the you know, in that kind of a situation. So I think that is part of the reason why the community wants and is asking us to provide that fire chief paramedic position right away, rather than waiting another year. Now, Mary Ann, I want to go back to I still have the concern, the issue about that, you know, charging the ambulance service fees, because hopefully we can start to provide advanced life support services, because that's what the community wants, that's what the community needs. But until then, and until we get this billing situation figured out, I'm questioning whether or not it's realistic to expect that much of an increase. So, and earlier you touched on the 118,000 number, 788 that you put into the fire chief, the personnel category. I don't see anything like that in the previous years. I'm just wondering if that's something that could conceivably be reduced to reflect this concern that we might not have those same revenues coming in as are listed in the highlighted portions above. Could you just, I mean, is that realistic in this budget to say let's reduce what we expect to get from those fees, and then maybe balance that out with let's reduce what we expect to pay for personnel expense?
I was basing the original 50,000, I based it on the actual this year. We are going to make $50,000 this year in ambulance service fees. We got a $7,000 check in there right now.
So is that something that's being carried forward that we already have?
No, I'm just basing on possible revenues for the next year. It's history. And when you base a budget, you look at what your history is. So I'm basically doing conservative numbers saying, okay, if we're gonna make 50,000 this year with all the turmoil that we had, the 3 months we didn't respond, however, I think we can do the 50,000 again. The other 30,000 came from the increase in ambulance service fees, which was 160% below what Hood River was 160% higher than we were. So by increasing our ambulance fees, if we have the same number of runs as we did in 10-11, we should be able to do this. That's all I'm saying. If you want to change that conservative number down or not bank on it, that's fine. I'm just giving you a projection of the increase that council took in the ambulance service fee restructure of billing. I mean, of the ambulance service fees. that they did.
Yeah, and I understand that you're budgeting conservatively. I guess where I'm coming from is I think we have a lot of ifs, even with that. I think in my mind, we have to solve that billing, procedure. And we haven't, I haven't heard a good answer for that. And at least, right, we will have those conversations, but when we're doing the budget, I would like us to be more conservative in the sense that we really don't know. The only thing that can happen as a result of that is that maybe we generate more revenue than we thought we would. You know, and so to me, that's a good thing. That, you know, maybe we can start to address the fund deficits or the declining beginning balance issues that our budget has, if we start to do it that way. So, I mean, I'd like us to, I mean, it doesn't look like it's possible given the deficit that we inherited from last year, but I'd like us to, at least for this 2-year window, to get off those projected revenues completely and to have some stable funding so that at the end of the 2 years, we can look back and say, well, what was the actual revenue when we had, you know, hopefully had a fire chief paramedic in place? And then we'll have that information, and we'll also have that reserve so that we can start to say, well, would we like to get back onto projected revenues, or are we comfortable with the current format? I think that's part of the purpose of creating that 2-year window of getting the department back on track. So I guess my question really is about how, if we were interested in reducing that projected revenue, then is that a place, I mean, that 118, is that a place where that could happen?
Depends on what you want for fire chief paramedic and how much you're willing to pay them.
I mean, I'm just trying to compare it to those past numbers where the total is 79 one year and 99 the year that we had the paid on-call position. So is 100, I mean, we don't have a paid on-call position. That was also one of the things that was eliminated last year. So would the 100,000 be realistic there, given that?
I think I'd have to defer that to Devin on what he thinks that we can hire a fire chief paramedic for.
Okay.
So, let me address the first thing. Go ahead, Brian, already. I'm not sure what you mean by a building situation. Because the building is done, it's taken care of. There's no situation anymore.
Well,
There's no situation anymore. I told you that at last council meeting, there's no situation.
but there was.
There was before you had me do it.
Yeah.
But there's not a situation anymore.
It was
because
4 months late.
Yeah, there's a paid staff now doing it, that's me. When you had a volunteer.
You were paid staff 4 months ago.
And I had volunteers doing it. And I learned my lesson, and I apologized to you in the council meeting that said volunteers doing billing did not work. And so I took that back over. So it's my job now to do billing. When you had a paid paramedic that was doing the billing on a routine basis in the Springfield, that's all it is. There's no process that we have to do here. All we have to do is take the reports, make sure it's done fully, send it to Springfield. That's our process. That's it. There's nothing more that we do here. That's it. City of Castlerock does nothing for ambulance billing. We send it to Springfield.
Just to clarify that though, you're saying that the process is to have a paid person, a staff person.
That's me right now.
Right, that's you right now, but you know, are you?
You have it in your budget to hire somebody.
Right, and I just want to clarify that, you know, that's what the community's asked for, and that's also an important part of
very much so
the billing process, which is why I'm bringing the billing process up.
Yeah.
Not to criticize you,
no, it's fine.
but to say that, you know, the community's asked for a paid person, for a fire chief or paramedic, to provide the ALS services, but also it helps us address the billing process.
Exactly.
So
it sends the bills in.
You know, I think it's worth making clear that if there's a proposal that doesn't include hiring that person, then we're back in the problem where we'll be asking volunteers to do them, and you found that didn't work.
It doesn't work.
So I think I just wanted to clarify, that's part of the process, is the paid person.
The paid person is part of the process. Somebody is responsible for doing that billing. Taking the bills, putting them together how Springfield needs them, and sending them down there. That's the whole process, that's all it is, it's really a pretty simple process.
If you have a paid person.
If you have someone, yes, the volunteer can do it, but obviously the volunteers we had right now weren't able to do it, so. Now, I just want to clarify here, from July 2011 to November of 2011, you virtually had no response, Cassie Lux. Did you realize that? You had 4 to 5 months of virtually no response.
What was that?
July of 2011 to November. Okay, there was very few responses that were created there. That was during the dark ages of Cassie Lux here. December 11th, volunteers all came back on board, we started responding again. Now, that's where I had to make the apologies, because I didn't follow up on the ambulance billing as quickly as I possibly could have. But since April, all the billing's done, taken care of. There's charts that are in there right now, so there are probably some charts in that box that haven't been billed, but that's gonna, if you have a call tonight, there'll be one tomorrow too that's not done. So there's things being handled there. So for about 6 or 7 months, charts weren't sent into Cassie Locks, there wasn't ambulances being answered. Call volume was extremely low here. Billable call volumes were extremely low here. Not a completely anomaly. That was not a normal year. You can't look at July of 2011 through June of 2012 as a normal year in Cassie Locks Fire and EMS. So the only thing I've done on my papers, I don't show the 8, 9, or 7, 8 budgets for what was received in revenues. But out of those 2 years, the average is $130,000 a year for ambulance revenue. I don't know what the previous year were. Obviously, as you get more years, you get a better average of ambulance calls.
What were those years again?
8, 9. I don't have any data before 9, 10. Whatever's on the
Okay.
sheet.
8, 9, 9.
I'm sure there's obviously ambulance revenue. Oh, these are ambulance calls.
For the last 10 years.
Sweet. All right. I'll have to add that up. Right.
About 54,000 an average, $54,000 a year.
Well, you gotta think though, before 7, 8, before 6, 7, you didn't have a big staff.
Right,
Wherever was that, so there's a big difference there.
right,
So you gotta kind of cut the 4 or 5 off there. So if you want to compare to big staff. So,
right, but then you look down here, you see 35,000. So it just varies.
Let's get into that later on. We've got several other people waiting to talk.
But anyway, my point being, what I want to make is, for 5 months now, you've had ambulances going out the door, some ALS, mostly BLS, because you have 2 volunteer paramedics, we talked about that multiple times. And you'll have $50,000 out of that 5 months. So that's $10,000 a month, and that's an all volunteer service. $10,000 a month, you continue your volunteer service, you're gonna look at about $120,000 a year. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna get that. You'll never hear me say, I guarantee you we're gonna get that much money. I can't even guarantee you're gonna get $1 next year. Because we might not have any ambulance calls. Now, yes, that's unrealistic, we're gonna have ambulance calls. But you can't guarantee ambulance calls. Emergency services are based on a standby model. You pay to have the services available to your citizens. That's the way it is. Now, having an ambulance transport service allows you to reimburse yourself for some of those costs. Ambulances are not profit makers. They're not profits. Cities are not supposed to make profits. Cities recover costs. That's what cities do. So, you have an ambulance that generates revenue to help cover the costs of providing ambulance and fire services. So that's what you're trying to do here. So if you take the average and you take it down to $8,000 a month, then that's $96,000. Take it down to $7,000, that's $84,000 a year. And now we're getting about where your average is at. So now you've dropped our averages for this last year, which I told you was an anomaly year for Cassie Locks Fire and EMS, at $10,000, drop it down to $7,000 a month. And you still got more money than what you're budgeting for revenue. I'm just saying, if you bring yourself in a paramedic that's here, that does the billing, you've got more coverage, because you can't save 40 hours a week of coverage from the paramedic, because there's gonna be trainings and meetings that that person has to go to. So you're gonna have more paid coverage than you have now, which is 0. You're gonna have ambulance revenues. You've gotta be conservative. I have no problem, and I do not blame you as a budget committee at all for being very, very conservative on your ambulance revenues. No concern with that. I applaud you for being conservative, because you just don't know. what's gonna happen next year for ambulance revenues. But you can be conservative to a point that you detract from the services that you provide. So be cautious to not cut your ambulance revenue predictions so low to the point you can't budget for even operating. Because, and Mary Ann can correct me if I'm wrong, if you budget this thinking this is what you're gonna make, and you can't change this budget more than, what is it, 10%, 5% a year? So there's a certain amount that you can only change your budget for, oh, yeah, we made more money, or, oh, we didn't make as much money as we expected. So you have to be realistic in your budget. So just be careful. I think if the budget, if the council, and the direction the council is going to take is to hire a full-time firefighter paramedic, a paramedic down here, that's going to be one of the things you want to hire, you're going to make some revenues. The billings are going to happen because you just got to send them into Springfield. That's all it is. The reason that we didn't get money this year is, for one, we didn't have anybody send those billings in, and for two, we didn't even go on the calls a lot of times there in the summertime. There's a lot of calls that were missed. Dominion County came over here a lot, we came down here a lot. There's a lot of times you just didn't have an ambulance going on that station. That's resolved. That's resolved. We haven't dropped a call in Cassie Locks now for a long time. The volunteers have been tremendous at answering all the ambulance calls. Very few times have they had to call Dominion County over for ALS backup or call for us for ALS backup. They've been knocking it out. That's tremendous for all volunteer ambulance agency to do that. Parkdale, same size agency or so, they have a paid paramedic and a paid chief. They have two paid persons. Parkdale. They run about the same number of calls. So I'm just saying, be conservative. I know you're being conservative. I applaud you at that. Don't be so conservative that it cuts you to the bone. Don't be too
Darlene?
worried about that.
And then Tom. And then we're gonna call for a
I
vote.
just want to make the comment that we had paid full-time staff here for like 6 years, and the billing didn't get done with paid staff.
Billing didn't get done?
The billing didn't get done with their paid staff. I was on budget last year, there was bills going out for 2009. I also want to say that we had volunteers that came to the council that said in July, I don't know what you're talking about a no vote, we're not responding. Theirs was 26 or 29, I think he said 26 calls, and we responded to 24 calls. So I don't know why you're saying we're not responding. We're responding to 24 or 26 calls. Now that was what we were told. So as far as we're not responding, I don't know about that. I know that I had a structure fire, and we had a paid full-time chief, and it took 24 minutes for anybody to show up to my place. My husband and I had it out before the fire department got there.
24 minutes
24 minutes
from 911 call.
from 911, yep.
I'd have to check the chart on
Yeah.
that, because I don't do
I
that.
did, I have it.
Okay.
I got it from Marita Hatton.
Did you get it
24
from the fire
minutes.
department or from Marita?
I got it from, oh no, the fire department said they were there in 14 minutes, but Marita had the actual call log, and it was
Big difference,
24 minutes.
big difference.
24 minutes for them to
You need to
get
get
there.
the report from the fire department. Just understand that if you're gonna make comments about fire department
Okay.
response times, you better get your information from the fire department.
Yeah, I have the actual call, when the call was made and when they arrived.
Can we get
You're talking about two different things here.
I could go into your.
We're not interested in anecdotal stuff at this point in time. We're discussing the budget.
So
You
I'm
have
saying-
something to do with the budget?
I'm
Let-
saying
bring
that
up-
they said that they were responding to calls, and you're saying that they weren't responding to calls. So I'm just saying that, as a
You
citizen.
have something to do with the budget that you would like to bring up, not anecdotal
I
stuff
would.
about particular calls.
Yes, I would. Everybody else here is discussing the same issues, Rob.
Would you like to, you have something that you want to bring up about the budget?
Yes, I also want to say the tower, you're talking about the tower expenses. You're talking about a tower that, the city didn't own that tower also. It wasn't the city's tower that they erected, so that's.
How
an
does this
expense.
relate to the budget? Come on, let's get back
Gail,
onto
when
the
you were
budget
talking about
items.
case histories that the lawyer mentioned Monday night, I didn't hear any case histories. I didn't hear any case numbers.
I told you, we're not going to go into stuff having to do with the
Responding to a
council.
comment made by
I
Roger
told you, we're not
Miller.
going to go into stuff having to do with the council. If you have a comment, if you have a question about the budget,
The
that's
charter
fine.
language?
Otherwise, that's it. Tom?
You talked about the charter language, and I'm in the dark with that because that wasn't discussed in an open meeting about changing the charter language. may come out of executive session.
Darlene, that's enough.
Monday.
Darlene, that's enough. Tom?
Well, again, with them, I guess it follows from the budget and in confidence. When we're talking about the emergency services, and we do have some issues going on here, and we're a couple of infightings on it. We did this, we're pitting people against the volunteers. And I think, and there's no doubt in my mind that both sides appreciate the volunteers. One side's being depicted as not appreciating, but they do appreciate the volunteers. The problem with it is Sandy does well because there's good management. Now, I trust Delvin. I trust Delvin to do the job right. I believe he's going to stay on top and stay focused. I trust Paul to do it. I'm having an issue with the council, and part of the whether they can do it. It's the management. Again, it's the management of things, and that's where we're stuck with the money.
You're talking about the
past. It's how we're going to manage the budgets.
What happened before he got
How
here?
we're going to manage the budgets and all that. Well, we still have a council that's now going to potentially hire a fire chief, and the problem is not the volunteers. The problem, in my mind, is can the council, in my mind, is dysfunctional, is can they hire a chief that can do the job that a Devin can do, or are we going to go back down this same road that we've been going down of losing all these funds that we're trying to manage here on it? And we get a lot of misinformation, and that's what's happening. We keep having to deal with misinformation. The information's getting better, but there's a lot of misinformation. I believe that the misinformation can continue to happen. So the issue isn't the volunteers. The issue is managing the budget, managing how it goes. And the biggest issue for me right now is our council, not the leadership down here. But the whole thing was not working, and that's why we're here, and that's why this is down here again, in my opinion.
Well, in my opinion, we're here to get a budget done and get it passed. And,
okay.
And as I said, after I had those last two people make comments, I was going to call for a vote, which is exactly what I'm going to do. All in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All against? Thank you. Anybody would like to state their reasoning?
Yes, I'd like to state, because these revenues are ill-gotten revenues against our city's charter, excuse me. Our council's not upholding and supporting our city charter.
Thank you for putting it that way. Cody?
Same. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what's legal and what's illegal, but I do believe that there's you can do a lot of things that are wrong, and they're still legal. And I think that people have spoken, and we should listen to them.
Tom?
Well, I'm good.
You're good? I want to.
No.
I want to, something I want to say. The council appointed a task force, I think it was back probably in March. That task force met at least 16 times. It had two open houses, and at every single meeting, people were invited to participate and share their thoughts and on everything. It wasn't just a comment period here and there. They were like a part of the task force. I didn't particularly like that. I didn't think that was the way to run a meeting, but that's the way it was run. And everybody got an opportunity to put their thoughts into that. When it was done, we took a vote, and we had an unanimous vote on what we had agreed to. It was 100%. We took a vote of the audience at one point in time, and everybody went for raising the ambulance fees except for one individual. So this is what the public asked for. And it's what we need to give them, in my estimation. Thank you. Let's move on. We're on item number 6. Action on budget items previously reviewed and tentatively approved. A list of items is provided for the committee's review. And I'm going to hand this off to Paul and Mary Ann. I'm sorry. You want a break? Would you like a break? How are you doing on the camera? We can do it now? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. Which is action on budget items previously reviewed and tentatively approved. A list of items is provided for the committee's review, and I'm going to turn that over to Paul and maybe Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary Ann's going to correct me if I make any mistakes here, but that's what she does all day long so well anyway. This document takes you back to those items that you tentatively approved and asked for additional information, clarity, or for us to look into some other factors. The first one was removing the streets contribution to that charge item called use of city property fee. So the savings of $4,290 in the street fund has been reallocated to contingency. So we have gone back in and adjusted that charge and taken it out of the street program. There's a wage benefit savings of $4,400 in the general fund due to council action on the wages that was taken the other night. Those two items will offset each other. And then whatever difference is there will be allocated to contingency. The second is to postpone the personnel services pending possible council action on wages and benefits. So the city council has taken action and has adopted the 2.96 cost of living increase for non-union employees effective July 1 of 2012. They also made a policy change regarding the cost sharing for increases in health benefits. There'll be no merit pay and there's no step increases based on longevity. Union employees in the electric department will be required to pick up an additional 2.5% of their health insurance costs. A 2.5% increase is allowed under the union contract. And the union contract in existence today goes till December 31st, 2015. There was some discussion with council about can we open that. So the clause in the contract says, yes, we can, but both parties have to agree. So if the union came to the city and said, we want to open the contract, and the city said no, there would not be an opening discussion. And it works the same way as the city went to the union. Total savings in wages and benefits is approximately $20,000 throughout all funds. There's a detail on how much savings is in each fund is attached. So if you look at the chart that Mary Ann did attached to this sheet, it gives you, Sherelle did that? I'm sorry, Sherelle did that. It doesn't, Mary Ann corrects me all the time. So that will tell you the cost spread on those savings. Staff's recommendation would be to not make adjustments to funds at this time as the 2% increase in internal payments has not been calculated. So there was also a direction to make a change in that, and we've not had time to calculate that. The third item that you raised was the Parks and Recreation, and we've gone back in and found an additional $2,000 of state revenue sharing, which was already allocated to general fund expenses. So the only place to cut would be in contingency of the general fund, which is currently $6,916. The $2,000 allocated to Parks and Recreation would make a contingency $4,916, and that would allow you to fund that. Let's see if there's any others.
It was 4,000 what?
It makes contingency $4,916 by allocating $2,000 to Parks and Recreation.
Thank you.
If the Parks and Recreation budget is set at 2,000 in personnel services. It would provide for an estimated 150 hours, including benefits. That would come out to about 9 weeks if the program were to remain on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. This would not include any materials or services. The fourth item is the potential of going over the budget in the senior sewer subsidy. This was not discussed last time, but recently came to our attention. This is currently funded with $3,000 from state revenue sharing. It would pay for only 11 seniors. The council is going to be faced with an upcoming council policy dealing with this program, and it appears at this point that we will have more seniors requesting that subsidy than we have in the past. So there may be a need to put additional funds in that program. And then we are proposing adding funding for the transit room tax audit services. This would be a budget impact of $2,800 in the general fund, which is 70% of the total estimated cost. So the transit room tax, 70% goes into the general fund. There would need to be an allocation from contingency, and that would leave the city contingency at $2,116. The remaining $1,200 for the transit room tax audit could come out of the tourism fund contingency, leaving them with $4,672. On the tourism issues, you've already had that report from Kayla, and so that is our report on the items that we had documented that were left open for your consideration.
Darlene.
Paul, could you tell us why we're hiring transit room tax auditors where in the past the city has audited TRT tax?
Right, yeah, what we discover is that when city staff doesn't, there's more difficulty, there's anger and anguish that falls on city staff. Most cities have gone to hiring outside auditors to do that on a sporadic basis, and we're proposing 2 audits a year here with an outside auditor.
Did we have any audits of the motels last year?
That I don't know, Mary.
Previous year, right?
Previous year.
Previous year.
Previous year, none during the current year.
2010.
Paul, Mark?
Yeah, also, we were talking the other night too on services and benefits, and if you, you know, with a contract worker on audit service, you wouldn't have to pay any of the benefits or anything else, so it's more reasonable that way too, you know, than to have, you know, city worker that's busy, you know, and this way you know, you're not paying his benefits. And
Paul, do we need a motion on these items?
Yes,
To accept them back in? Do we have to do that one at a time, or can they be done as a group?
As a group.
As a group? Okay. I would entertain a motion on these 4 items.
I make a motion to approve tentatively the items that have been discussed by staff that have been brought back.
And we have a second. Do we have any more questions? Darlene?
I'd like to see them broke down separately because I would approve Parks and Rec, but I wouldn't approve the rest. Can somebody tell me, there's a cost savings of, you said $20,000 for the health insurance. So the employees' wages went up 3%. And then the cost savings, they're paying out of pocket more for their health premiums of about almost 18 to 20,000, something like that. It said 18 at council. So that's what, about less than 1%? Is that less than 1% cost savings from wages and benefits for staff?
I don't have that number on the top.
Mary Ann, do you have that number by any chance?
I do not know.
Okay. Lance?
We know how much staff wages and benefits are, so we know that 18% is less than 1% of an increase. Big savings.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of confusing the issue about the cost savings, but there's a chart that explains how it breaks down and what the total is. So hopefully people can take a look at that. Just a question,
we're looking at contingency fund. And I talked to other cities about how they do it, and one idea that kind of came out of discussions was sometimes they'll say no contingency fund, no contingency budget at all in the separate funds, but the general fund has a larger contingency, so that when contingencies come up, it comes out of the general fund contingency. But we don't do it that way, is that correct? Each fund has its own separate contingency. Has that ever been discussed? I mean, I guess it's getting on to the middle of June, it might be a little late to bring up this
No,
time.
that's never been brought up in any meetings since I've been here now.
Okay. Have you ever seen that, Paul?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay, and would you speak to the relative benefit or disadvantage of doing it that way?
Well, the advantage is you pull all the contingency into one place. So regardless of where the problem is, council would have to see that and make that decision. The advantage to what you do here is that each contingency is laying in each program or each department. So the departments know exactly what their limitations are. It's just a matter of budget style.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it makes more sense, since it's the city budget, to have one contingency fund, and when we need to, when we have contingencies arise, to take it out of that, rather than now, as we start to kind of ratchet it down, we start to question, well, the general fund can't really deal with any kind of contingencies the way it's, when it gets ratcheted down like that. So I'd like us to at least consider that. You also mentioned the tourism committee has a recommendation on the concept. I don't remember seeing that in there. Maybe I missed it.
It was my understanding that they had, I didn't see it on their sheet, they had selected to recommend that $1,000 be allocated in the capital reserve to begin saving money for a visitor center in downtown.
10,000 put aside for.
So, is that, the way these are laid out, you have a general fund and a tourism. So, Jeff, is the general fund and tourism part of your motion, or are you just talking about these 5 numbered items under general fund?
The 5 items.
Okay.
These are all.
Okay. Thanks.
Jeff, and then Tom.
Question, Paul,
Yes.
Lance brought up having all the contingencies under one umbrella. The advantage I see of that is if it's there and each department or each fund, if the contingency is not what it's budgeted for, how much, Marianne, do you have, I guess, a 2-part question, one for you, Paul, but the other part is, Marianne, if they have to reallocate those funds to up it because your contingency wasn't large enough, how big a deal is that in the budget for you to do that? And Paul, has that been done where you've been at, and Marianne, how?
I'm not familiar with that type of budgeting, and, I'm sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead.
The purpose, in my budgeting experience, the contingency is used for unanticipated expenditures, and if it's not used, it goes into the beginning balance of that fund. Now, if you put it all in the general fund, I'm not sure how that all flows back into the funds that have the contingencies. Because then you're depleting the beginning balance of the funds that have that contingency. So I'm not familiar with this budgeting process of this issue on contingency, but that's how I would see it being a possible problem.
No, Paul, she's gonna.
You are in a historic, traditional budgeting process. You got to the point where you break everything up very finitely, which to a degree is good. What you're missing is you don't see each department in its entirety. And so you don't then see the entire city budget, you little tiny pieces. If I were to totally revamp your budget process, you would have a public works department. You wouldn't have water, sewer, streets, public facilities. Those would be programs and then you can begin aggregating those contingencies. And what Mary Ann is talking about, you have to revamp how you want your budget in order to then to trace where does general fund contingency versus water contingency versus something else sit. You can't do that in your current system.
Tom, and then,
Yeah, the way I see contingency, especially putting it all in the general fund, is, for me, you're just opening it up to one of the departments, whatever, and they're saying, or actually letting things go to the point where they get an emergency, they take all the contingency, and then you got all these other departments going, having a problem, and then going, oh geez, now there's no money for me. So you get in this thing where, who's gonna get the contingency, you know, it's almost where I'm gonna let something go so I can grab all that contingency. Whereas when it's in your departments, it's in your department, and that's it, and you go after it. It just seems like sticking it all in one pot. Somebody's gonna go after that pot, and they're gonna go after the whole pot, not just parts of the pot. So I see a problem with all of them in one pot.
Mine's gone.
Gail.
Yeah, I guess one of the examples I can use, you know, we used to have one electrical budget, but that kind of masked the unique expenses associated with South Bank. So we split that out. And part of what we're trying to do is understand the detail of each functional area, income and expenses that relates to itself, not the big picture. And so, yeah, there's advantage in saving complexity, but I think there's a disadvantage in financial management for each of the entities if you were to consolidate too much.
Question?
Anybody
Thank you.
else? Bobby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, earlier in the process, there was a $5,000 expenditure for a wage study. Is that still in the budget?
Yes.
I would still like to recommend that we change that and we could fund tourism with that. I think, I'm sorry, recreation.
Tourism?
Recreation. I think we could fully fund recreation with that money, and I don't see the need for a wage study right now.
Gail?
Well, I'm just wondering if we're still on the motion or are we into other topics?
No, as far as I'm concerned, we're still on the motion. Do we have any other questions? Mary Ann?
I have a question on the motion because I don't understand it, number one. And I apologize for that. But if
my
you're
fault.
saying, the 5 items, number 4 is not an action item, so why are you voting that one in? It's just an information item.
Okay.
Number 3, are we funding Parks and Rec,
Yes.
with the state revenue? Are we not going to add any more to senior sewer subsidy? These are our recommendations.
All right, I was confused. I'll withdraw my
I'm very
motion.
confused about,
I'll withdraw my motion, I'll put a new one in to go, well, each individual one that you need to do. How's
You
that?
bring up a good point.
Yeah.
it
My
doesn't
bad.
make any sense. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Would you like to
She said
redo your
no.
motion?
I'll withdraw my motion. Who seconded it?
I don't know, maybe me. I would want if I did.
It doesn't matter once you withdraw, it's gonna.
All right,
Okay.
there we go. Make a motion to approve each individual item as discussed by staff, just so we can talk about them. So let's go with number 1, revenue sharing.
Second.
Okay. Mary Ann?
Number 1 is already removed out of street funds,
Funds, okay.
4290.
All right.
There is no, because council made that motion and did that on Monday night, there is really no action to be taken on number 1 in my mind, unless
Okay.
you as budget see something different.
Well, you adjusted for that by the.
So is this motion to approve the changes
Yes.
that
Yes.
we did?
Yes.
Thank you. Then, can you state that as that motion, please? I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, you're good.
For the minutes, it's very
Yeah, no.
important that we have it that way.
Withdraw that motion, stating as Mary Ann said, for the adjustments that we made, for item number 1.
And a second.
And a second.
Okay.
There we go.
Now can we vote?
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you get everybody?
Yes, thank you.
All against? Let's state your reason.
Yeah, I would rather seen them separated out because I wouldn't have voted for all 4 of them.
I think they are being separated out.
You said you just,
No, he's just doing number 1.
As the changes, as all the changes.
No, number 1.
Number 1.
Just number 1, Darlene.
Okay,
Retracted his.
so then number 1 was,
Revenue share.
The street funds, the $2,200.
No, it's the streets.
It's the streets.
It's the property.
And the
Yeah.
remaining amounts we allocated
then I'll vote for that.
Okay, so we're unanimous on that.
On
Well,
that
I
one.
actually only counted 10 yeses, so I want to make 11 yeses, which means somebody didn't vote.
Whatever.
Okay, so I have 11 yeses.
Okay,
That's the hand right now. Thank you.
shall we move on? Do we need a motion on any of these others?
Yes.
Darlene?
I'll make a motion to take the state revenue sharing 2,000 and give it to the Parks and Rec Department and to make the general fund contingency $4,916.
Second.
All in favor? Raise your hands, please.
Thank you.
All against?
I would prefer to take the $5,000 from the proposed wage study and change that to fund recreation at $5,000.
Not all the $5,000 is budgeted in the general fund for the wage study. It's
It's
distributed
throughout
through
the whole
several funds.
fund.
Okay.
Are you making a motion, or you just saying why?
I'm saying why I voted no.
Not making a
Yeah.
motion.
Although I'm trying to support the recreation, I'm trying to do it at a larger rate than the revenue sharing. I think that money can be found, more money can be found
I
elsewhere.
just don't know where the more money is in this budget.
Do we need a motion
I agree,
on
I don't
number
know.
4? Mary Ann?
Pardon?
And we need a motion on 4.
Number 4?
We missed 2.
There was nothing to do.
If you want to, increase the sewer subsidy so we can take more applications, then you would need a motion to increase that, and then you'd have to find the revenue. If we don't, then we are gonna be limited to 11 people if we get more than 11 applications.
Of more people.
But
And right now, we have seen an increase.
How many people are on the senior subsidy now?
Right now, there's 9,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
and we've got 4 brand-new applicants, and the 9 haven't all reapplied yet. But if we have the same 9, which I'm sure we will, plus another 4 already, we've already got 13 applicants. So-
Mary Ann, do you have a suggestion of where that could come from?
We couldn't do all those at once.
Not at this time.
It's 2275.
We can't put you on the spot?
Pardon?
Can't put you on the spot?
That's what
Well, you know,
Go ahead, Gail.
I just don't think we can be perfect. You know, I mean, I
I
can't.
understand that.
I think if we can cover 11 out of 12 with what we have, then that's doing pretty good.
Sherelle and then Lance?
There's just not a current written policy in place, and there's a policy, a proposed policy coming to council
Okay.
to make that decision.
Great.
Lance?
I apologize that this isn't in the form of a motion, but I'd just like to ask a question that. So, is it possible that we could budget more to extend Parks and Rec beyond the 9 weeks if we were to have a proposal that, for example, we collect a user fee for that service? I know that they have kind of a user fee as a quarter, but maybe if that was to be established a little differently, you know, potentially you could keep it going more than just the 9 weeks. Is that possible?
Oh, the answer is yes. Many communities operate their parks and recreation programs on the fees generated or collected. That's not where you've been. I think if you want to do that, council could ask the Parks and Recreation folks to come up with a proposal that would propose doing that.
Okay, Bobby's next, and Gail.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but your statement before that $5,000 for the wage study comes out of several accounts, several departments. Could we not go into those departments and withdraw that money?
Yes, you can, it just changes all the departments.
But the revenue wouldn't be in general fund, the additional revenue, only a portion of the additional.
So we would have to go back individually to plug in that money that I'm proposing we take out for the wage study.
The only portion that you can take out of the wage study is what the general fund puts into the wage study. Because you can't say water is paying part of the wage study. You can't take water money and put it into Parks and Rec. General fund is the funding mechanism for Parks and Rec. So if the general fund contributes $1,000 to that $5,000 wage study, that's all that Parks and Rec will be getting, is the $1,000. The other ones will be, the money will be allocated different within their fund.
So how much is, how much is in the general fund that is earmarked towards the wage study?
It's $6,000. It's 27% of $6,000 if you want to put that on the calculator. 27.29% of $6,000.
1,800. Or 18, yeah, 1,800.
You said 27?
27% of $6,000.
$1,620.
$1,600.
Okay, well,
You're close.
then I would propose that we take that out of the general fund portion for the wage study and put it towards funding recreation, in addition to the revenue sharing.
I'll second it.
Oh,
Well, make a motion.
so,
You already
He said he'd make his
Propose, that's not.
proposal, didn't
Yeah.
That's my proposal, I'm not.
he? You're not making a
Did
motion?
you want,
want me-
do you want to make a
I'll
motion on that? Are you,
Make a motion?
Yeah, make a motion.
I'm sorry.
just to clarify your motion, are you moving to remove $1,620 from contract service miscellaneous and general fund? Is that what you're,
That is, if that's earmarked for the wage study, yes, that is what my motion is. So now, we would have the wage study money, the $1,600, and the revenue sharing, what was that, 22? 2,000.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay. Darlene?
My only
Thank you.
problem with that is that the revenue in the general fund is anticipated revenue increases from what they did Monday night in the special meeting, where they went against the voters. They raised the franchise fees to the utilities to get additional revenue going into that general fund. So I'm going to abstain from that because I don't want to be a part of that, because I do feel that there's probably going to be some court action on that, and I don't want to be, I'm going to abstain. And Paul, I think you talked a little bit about a wage study Monday night. It was, I don't know, is this the wage study where you're talking about evaluations?
Yeah, this would be an evaluation of the job of each person to determine if they're being paid appropriately, linked with a time in motion study so the city can properly address, is each position adequately being assessed against the enterprise funds.
And I think that's an important study that we need to have
Yes.
done. I think Parks and Rec is too, but we need to look elsewhere to fund it.
Gail?
Hey, since you're here from Parks and Rec, right? Now, didn't I run into you at the store the other night?
What was that? I'm sorry?
Did I run into you in the store the other night?
Yes, you did.
And if I remember what you might have said, if the 2,000 was there, that would allow one person to go.
$3,000 will cover 100% for one person, 6,000 for two, of course. And then maybe we could get volunteers from parents, you know, maybe we can, you know, really.
My question, I think, I don't know where this 11, or their interpretation. So if recreation had $2,000 for one person, how long could recreation be supported? One paid person.
It would be, I'm gonna just say 8 months.
It's 150 hours.
9 weeks, 150 hours for 2 people.
I know, but what's one?
18 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Ann?
I would also like to just comment, if you have one person down here with all these kids, the liability for the city would be much greater for anything that could happen.
We're saying one person is paid and one person a volunteer.
There's no guarantee, and again, there's no guarantee that a volunteer will be there.
Then don't hold it.
I'm just pointing out the issues.
That's all right.
So.
Jeff?
Just a real quick question. Paul, do we need Devin? You want to, are all our questions answered for Devin?
I'd like to keep him here till midnight.
You are going to keep him.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
If the budget committee is through asking questions of Devin, then we could let him go.
Yeah.
Hit the bricks, man.
Bobby's got a motion on the floor, I believe.
Yeah, but that's just I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have him sitting here and we're not asking him questions, so we're beyond Fund 5.
I have no input on these topics.
Can you restate that motion? You want to pull money out of the study, out of the work study?
I make a motion that we take the general fund portion of the wage study, approximately $1,600, and the revenue sharing at $2,000, and fund parks and recreation.
We already did the revenue sharing.
I've got one question. Mary Ann, does that leave enough money for the study
No, the study will be taken out.
completely? All in favor, please signify by raising your hands. All against?
I abstain also.
Okay. Motion does not pass. Are we all done with those now, I think? Those items?
Are they done, Mary Ann?
Number 5 would be the TRT audit.
We still need number 5?
Well, I understand.
Rob?
Please.
I would just like to say, I know we're moving on past Parks and Rec now, but I'd like to, in my mind, I still have a highlight next to that before we pass the final budget. I'd like us to look for ways, potentially the charge at the door, and perhaps other ways that we can increase the funding there. And, if it's gonna take a proposal from the committee, then, I would welcome that, and I'll be working with the committee to try to come up with, some kind of proposal that can get the votes we need to. So, in my mind, that's still happening.
Okay. Yeah.
And I agree with that. I mean, I donate, I don't even have goddamn kids anymore, but.
You volunteer?
No, I'm not.
Hey, you can't talk like that about kids.
Yeah, I might clean them out real quick. But if there's a donation program, and I would think that the parents, especially the parents that benefit, could or would be willing to contribute something, and I donate $100 or something, and you guys can do something.
Yeah, everybody can match that.
Bobby?
It's on a Pam, is attendance on donation or, well, the kids, I know the kids are charged something, I think, but what is it?
Okay, the kids get charged 25 cents to come.
Okay.
Just because when we voted on it years ago, we thought, hey, we want them to be putting something into it, because we talked about, having it for free. child shows up that doesn't have a quarter, do not turn them away, you know. Just because it'd be kind of sad, everybody but one person, you know. But yeah, a quarter,
So where the donation, would they go to the city or to?
general fund.
Would that be projected revenues?
Everything's, all revenues are projected until they're received.
Paul?
In cities that have recreation programs, most of them are covered by user fees somewhere in the 70 to 80% level. Most cities have that policy. So when you have an event, people pay that fee. That fee goes into the general fund, and much like all of your others, is then traced back out to support the recreation program. The other possibility that I think you have here in Cascade Locks is, why couldn't you create your own club membership and every kid pays $50 a year or something? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that, that you could achieve that.
Okay.
Darlene?
I think that's a lot of money. We're in a recession. We have, the kids that are going to the Parks and Rec they got lots of brothers and sisters. So $50 a kid, that's gonna hit a family hard. And plus, you know, we're hitting these people in their utilities, in their user fees. We're already hitting these people.
Anyway.
25 cents for a kid to play at the, you know, you can't charge them that. You can't charge them $50.
Paul?
Well, that's a good point, Darlene. I wasn't suggesting you charge $50, I just gave that as an example of what you might be able to do. It may only be 10, maybe 5, or get some people to provide scholarships. There's the scholarship number right there.
Put a donation box up at the window. I don't know.
We'd have to have a vote of the people for that, wouldn't we?
No, not for donation.
Not for donation.
Yeah.
Let's check.
Mark?
Maybe Nestle's would help out, that'd be a good sponsor, maybe Nestle's, maybe we need to approach Nestle's and see what they can get.
Can we get back on topic?
I'll talk to them.
Okay.
Let's get back on topic.
Well,
Can I say something?
use water.
Pam was wanting to say something.
The church, I spoke to Beth Bennett, and she is checking in to seeing about a grant for us also, which would be a donation, you know. So, and of course, you know, it's just kind of in the talking stages. We haven't even actually met, we just talked on the phone about it. So when that gets more closer to time, of course, I will come to you guys and, you know.
Does anybody have a motion on this?
On what?
Anybody want to make a motion on it?
On what?
On Parks and Rec? What to do about
Number
it?
5.
You need number 5?
Number 5? Yeah, I don't see anything in there to make a motion on.
On number 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is.
What are you talking about?
This, no. Here.
Oh, excuse me, okay,
So we gotta talk about number 5.
okay. Mark?
Make a motion to propose adding funding for TRT audit service.
Second.
Okay. Any, Lance?
Can you clarify why this is mostly being funded by the general fund?
Because 70% TRT tax goes to the general fund. So we felt that it only be fitting that the general fund pay 70%.
Aye.
Go ahead, Gil.
No, I'm voting.
Oh. All in favor? Get him?
Are you voting yes, Jeff? Okay, thank you.
All against?
I'll abstain. I don't think I should vote on my auditor. That's how I own a motel.
Those who are against, anybody want to make a statement? Bobby?
I think it should be done by staff.
Tom? You're okay? Okay. Let's move on to item number 7. Begin development of final recommendation to City Council. Excuse me?
Oh, it's 9 o'clock, and we have a motion.
Oh, yes. We'll need a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second. Till 9:30.
All in favor, please raise your hands.
Let's get it done.
Continue.
Okay.
Are we talking about continuance of the meeting
No,
Yes.
continue.
to another date? Or
No, to continue the meeting tonight,
tonight?
Continue the meeting.
till it's done.
Till it's done?
It's almost
That's
done now.
indefinite.
Almost done now. I want to get it finished. I told Paul we'd be here until midnight if necessary.
No, sir.
4 o'clock.
Okay. Exactly what we have to do on this development of a motion here.
You can move to adopt the budget as modified through the discussions and actions of the budget committee. Or you can make any adjustments to that as you go, or you could propose having another meeting, which would have to be on the next week. Any other options that they have?
I would entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any comments? Questions? Karen?
I have a question regarding some of the actions from Monday night, 2% internal payments. I'm not sure what that does to this budget, and I guess I'm kind of interested as to what that might mean before I vote on the budget.
And we did not have time to put that.
I understand that.
As one of the items that we did not have a chance to do time. So, we still have to put that into the budget to see what those, changes affect. And then how the department heads would like to, come up with that.
Reduce their expenses to compensate for their 2% portion.
That's correct. We have not been able to talk to the department heads about that yet.
Lance?
So can I clarify the motion? Could you clarify the motion to adopt the budget?
To adopt the entire budget, yes.
Okay, but we had in the report that, so we haven't made those changes yet. How can we adopt the budget that's not balanced? I don't get it.
I was under the impression that,
I would interpret the motion to be to adopt the budget with the changes and adjustments as previously discussed. The one thing, as Mary Ann points out, that we can't tell you is the impact of the 2%, but I think that could be incorporated just to mean that you make those appropriate reductions in the operating departments. It has to balance.
But we wouldn't be approving those adjustments. We'd be approving them before they're made, is what you're suggesting.
Right, you would direct the budget to be developed reflecting those adjustments, and then when it's presented to council for action, that would be the moment of that.
And I'll also add that there's some, I don't think that adjustments have been made in tourism that we discussed. And as I said earlier, I don't see Parks and Rec program funding resolved, so it's hard for me to support finishing the work before those 3 things happen.
okay,
Might need
Darlene?
an additional meeting.
Yeah, there's a lot of
next week.
issues that we don't know about.
Okay,
Then maybe I should withdraw the motion.
okay, let's go into those issues. Lance? Something that you wanted to bring up?
I would ask that we have staff bring us those adjustments
Okay,
at a meeting on, as suggested here on the agenda, on June 12th. It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. June 12th.
And that we set the goal of adoption of the budget at that time. Although
How about
I guess I was hoping for just one meeting next week, but I'll come back on Tuesday. 2%, the issues I'm talking about are tourism, internal payment adjustments, and possible Parks and Rec proposal.
What's outstanding on Parks and Rec?
Well, I'm gonna ask Nestle
matching funds for your 100 and hopefully $100, and then we'd like to put that in the budget.
Go ahead, Gil.
Pardon?
Did you have a question
Yeah,
or a
you
comment?
just answered it.
Okay.
Is that your motion, Lance, or
Continue the meeting?
Well, I guess we're on number 7, so I'm not gonna make a motion to continue the meeting until June 12th. I'm just stating that rather than, yeah, I mean, that's the direction I think we should give the staff, so, yeah, okay. I would direct that staff come back with a final budget with those adjustments.
And continue the meeting over.
I'm not gonna vote, no, because we have additional opportunity for public comment before we,
Yes, I
before we
understand.
continue the
I
meeting.
understand.
So I'm just suggesting that that happen on June 12th. And I'll make that in the form of a motion, yes.
Okay, and so we have it in the form of a motion. All in favor?
Did we have discussion?
Discussion?
Yes, discussion. Any questions?
I do
Yeah.
have a question. What's the reality of that you can actually get this done by Tuesday night? Because I know that's a lot of work to go through and take care of this. Are we going to, do you have time to get this ready along with your other work?
I have to make it happen.
Okay.
I have a deadline, so I'll have to make it happen.
And why did we choose Tuesday night instead of Wednesday night?
I think the 12th is.
I chose that because it's listed right here on our agenda. I'm assuming that the staff.
I can answer that question. I have to have a publication ready for Friday's newspaper. I need some time to
Okay.
prepare.
So either
A
crunch
new-
now or crunch later?
A new publication that I've never done before for the New Hood River News, so I need some time.
Okay.
And so I'm asking for that time because it's gonna take me
Okay,
some
I
time to
just
prepare.
want to understand, that's fine.
And I'm, looked at my calendar and I'm asking that to be the drop down on the dead date
Yeah.
that we do this.
Agreed.
Tuesday works.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. All in favor? All against? Anybody care to give an explanation? Darlene?
No.
Bobby?
Nope.
Tom? Okay. You had another one? Undeclared. Okay.
So now we have additional public.
And did you want to make a comment on that? Okay. Okay, I think we are now ready for additional public comment.
I probably take it at the end too.
Would you please step up?
What is the 9 weeks thing? What's that mean?
We basically, I took $2,000, plugged it in to see how much we could get, including your FICA, medical, Medicare, all the taxes that I have to pay, the workers' comp. Comes down to 150 hours, and 2 staff, Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's 9 weeks of pay.
But it's only, 8 hours a week that's being paid.
8 hours per pay period. You guys do 2 hours, 2 nights per week each. Yeah.
Right,
So 8 hours per.
right. No, 16 hours per pay period, if it was both of us. So I do 4, she, okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so that's just 9 weeks. I thought it was longer. So there was a couple numbers that you guys voted on and, you know, so we're gonna get, 4916 plus, 1620, which makes $6,536. No? Are we getting the 2,000 plus the, study, which is 1620, which makes 3620?
Oh, 2,000.
2,000.
With the other things that we voted on, I thought we were.
They voted down.
Okay, gotcha, sorry.
But we're looking at other things too, though. We're looking, right, at that.
Do you think we'll have that response from Nestle by next Tuesday?
No idea.
And do our donations and our grants have to go through the council to get them? You know, like, if the church helps us out, why do we have to go through the council if someone wants to give us money?
So you're paying people.
Because that has to go in the budget, and grants, correct me if I'm wrong, grants have to be approved by council before they can be applied for.
That's right.
Okay,
And they have to go in budget.
okay, so if it just like comes along, it's not like extra, and then we can put it in the budget, and then like, it's just like a bonus.
No, if it's a special purpose grant, which I'm assuming that this was what would be, it has to be used that year, cannot go over into another year.
We wouldn't get it till like September is my thoughts.
I don't write the budget laws.
I know,
So it has to,
do budgets.
it has to be approved by council to be able to apply for a grant.
Uh-huh.
And then if it's a special purpose grant, it has to be done through a resolution and accepted, and then we're okay to spend it as long as we spend it for that year, in that year.
Okay,
We can help you process that so that it's.
uh-huh, okay.
Should we have a grants line item in Parks budget then? If we think something might be coming in?
Because it's not us that's doing it. It's someone else.
It's gotta come into your account.
As long as you're a city program and on the city payroll.
And, another thing, if it came down to it, what would it take to, be our own entity? Be our own,
Nonprofit,
It would
You know,
take
a nonprofit, yeah.
I can work with them if that's what they like to do, but you have to form your own group, get an attorney, push yourself through 501c3, or attach to an existing 501c3.
Okay. I have no more questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I would entertain a motion.
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
I just have a couple of little questions here. And one was when you were talking about the tower. I remember reading something where Mr. Smith wanted to charge $200 a month. Has that been resolved?
So if y'all remember the story of the tower.
Yes, the tower.
The city's towers on the Smith property began way back in 1970. And over the years, you entered into different arrangements with him, culminating in the 2002 arrangement for a 50 by 50 easement, for which Mr. Smith requested a $4,000 payment, and the city paid that. So when we were starting to ferret out the tower issue, we took Mr. Smith up on top of the hill, and he immediately noticed that the foundation and the tower were located outside the 50-50, and he said, "You guys are gonna owe me more money." So we negotiated and identified where the 50 by 50 is with him on site. Had the surveyor shoot it, took him back up there to see the pins, and then began to put together the contract to that has to go along with the certified survey. In the negotiations, he announced to the city attorney that he wants more money, and we've had him floating between $300 a month in perpetuity to $500 a month. We don't know what it is. But that's where it's at.
So there's no clear answer.
Not at this moment, there is none.
Okay.
So we're looking at a number of legal options that the city would have, and that research hasn't been completed by the attorney.
I just have one other thing. That packet I gave you with the ambulance cost for the last 10 years, I had those numbers verified with Mary Ann. I showed them to Devin, and he could not believe the one year where there was, I don't know, was it 08, 09, I don't have my paper. But that the revenue, the ambulance collection was only $35,000. He said there must be an error. I talked to Mary Ann, and she said no, that all that money was deposited. So that number could be incorrect, and I don't know what it is. It did seem rather low to me. But I just wanted to point that out because I don't want to give any false information, you know, so I can't verify that for sure. And There was another thing, I saw the, money for the computers, and maybe this was answered, but, and I know there's been a lot of problems, but if you go to the website, you know, and you look up the fire department, there's this wonderful, lovely report for 2006, and there's nothing after that. And so I don't know if part of that money for the computers is to get that going, but there's nothing there, and I don't know, I mean, I know there's no one there to do it, but it would be so nice and helpful for the public to know what's going on and what's happening and where we're at. So I just wanted to mention that. That's all, and thank you for being so polite.
Thank you. Mary Ann?
That
And then Darlene.
website was updated through our fire chief, that we do not have the capability or the staff to update that website.
Thank you.
So without the fire chief, paid fire chief, that has slid down.
Well, it hasn't been done since 2006.
Right,
so.
yeah, but he's the one that did it, so I don't know how, I don't know how any information's getting on that at this point.
Nothing, okay, I got you.
Paul, you made reference to the city's tower. Is it the city's tower?
The current tower that's standing up on the hill, the metal one, it is not the city's tower.
And we need a motion for continuance of the meeting till Tuesday, June 12th, 2012.
So moved.
Have a second? We have a second? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All against? And did you want to state a reason?
Adjourned.
Adjourned.